RetroGaming Radio 2005. Keep it retro. Welcome to RetroGaming Radio. I'm Shane Armin, your host, RetroGaming Radio. RetroGaming Radio. Today, Wednesday, another game based on the Quake 2 engine.
Kimberly, come in. Are you okay?
You're now listening to RetroGaming Radio. RetroGaming Radio.
And you're listening to Retro Gaming Radio.
Welcome to the program. RetroGaming Radio 2005. Shane Armin, Brian Smith behind the board. Keep it retro. Hey everybody, welcome to the Christmas 2004 special edition of Retro Gaming Radio. This is Shane R. Monroe, your host. Brian Kid Hype Santa Smith behind the mixing board. Welcome to our very, very special Christmas edition. We've got so much good stuff planned for you. We're going to give you an in-depth review of the Commodore 64 30-in-1 TV controller. Does it meet that high standard and expectation that I've been crying about since we heard about this months and months ago? We're going to find out all about that. We're going to review some titles that have been kicking around for a while. We're going to look at the Atari Anthology for the PlayStation 2. We're going to look at Are You All That, a DVD trivia game. Crimson Land, the shareware Bloodfest game. Whew. And we're also going to have a new interview for you. Michael Welch, old school Amiga programmer. If you name sounds familiar, Scorched Tanks. I've talked about that numerous times on the show. Now doing PC development, including Pocket Tanks, which is the unwieldy popular PC version of Scorched Tanks, as well as his latest project, Super DX Ball. And since Michael Welch is the definition and the epitome of the classic shareware developer, you're going to get to hear some really cool insights and theories and philosophies of the independent programmer, those who are living by making shareware games. It can be done, folks, and Michael Welch is going to tell you all about it. We've got that and so much more this month's special edition of Retro Gaming Radio. Our editorial commentary this month is, can classic games survive in a modern world? Somebody mentioned on the forums, the Retro Gaming Radio discussion forums, which are now open again, if you did not know that, somebody mentioned on there, is it possible to make a modern looking, feeling game that is classic or retro in terms of the gameplay and the replayability, all of the things that people loved so dearly about classic games? Is it possible to recapture that magic in a modern look and feel? And, you know, I've always been a big believer that that can be done. I've always said that there are numerous games out there. I mean, hundreds, maybe thousands of classic games from the Commodore 64, unfortunately from the NES. I mean, there's tons of games that we all grew up with that we would absolutely die to see a modern remake of it done properly. Now let's talk about what exactly properly means. What does a game have to do in order to meet this sort of status? Well, first of all, it's got to look awesome. People are spending $500 on video cards. Heaven forbid if there's not multicolor volumetric fog on Pac-Man. Okay? So you need to find a way to work those neat graphic effects in there. Otherwise, people will say the game sucks before they even play it. So it's got to look good. It's got to have unbelievable sound, right? 5-to-1 mix, please, if you prefer, because I just spent $300 on this Audio Vox Live 5-to-1 Super Whamidine Dolby Digital 6-channel stereo sound card, right? So you got to support that. While you're at it, everything should have force feedback, including Pac-Man. When the ghost eats me, I want to feel it. It is Christmas time. I wonder if I should talk like that. What the hell. So it needs to support force feedback. Okay. Let's see. What else does it have to have before the modern game players even look twice at it? Oh, rich, in-depth storyline. If you're going to remake Pac-Man, there needs to be a complete reason for his existence. If you've got the opportunity, full motion cutscenes between, you know, the little
intermission scenes, those need to be full motion video, full rendered with alias wavefront or similar. So we need those cutscenes in between. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to get into the game because it's not immersive enough. So I need that storyline behind that, yeah. And, I need online multiplayer deathmatch play. It doesn't matter if the game supports or is designed for multiplayer in mind. Just hack it in there. I don't care. I can't play against the computer because, humans are so much more challenging and more interesting to play against. So I don't want to have to play a solo game. I need to be able to play online. Let's see. Okay, so that takes care of the modern components. Now, let's look at what it needs to meet the classic gaming criteria. First of all, the game can't be scripted. Okay? If it's scripted, scripts have a start and an end. So if you script something too far, then it has a start and an end, and the game becomes worthless when it's finished. Okay? We need to have simplistic gameplay. If it takes more than one button, maybe two, you're going to lose us. All right? I can go 2 buttons. All right? 2 buttons, to me, still falls into the classic gaming area. Okay? Let's see. It needs to have a lot of replayability. I should want to play it more than once. I should want to finish it more than once. Now, how you make that happen, that's totally up to you. However, the idea here is once I play it, I need a reason to come back and play it again. Okay? This probably means you're going to have to put some intelligent scoring into the game. Okay? Don't just say mission complete, blah blah blah. Okay? We got to have some points in here. Give us a reason. If I'm going to have online to play internet to play online anyway, you might as well give me a high scoreboard I can tap the internet for. Okay? Give me a reason to keep playing. Okay? And the game has to be creative. There has to be something new about it. Give me a little something I can take home. Give me something I can take home and show my mom and say, look, Mom, isn't this like the coolest thing since whatever the hell game she'd remember, right? So we've got these sort of elements here that soothe us classic gamers. Now let me see if I can impart to you why these two can't marry up. First of all, there's conflictions in between the requirements. The modern gamer has to have the in-depth storyline. That requires a script. Script means start and stop. Script means that the game will be over at a certain period, and chances are likely, if you've gone through the script, you're not going to be able to go through it again without feeling like you're going through it again. Okay? There's also another problem. There is a creative license that goes along with having a vision. I can have a vision. Me personally, Shane Armero can have a vision. Now, when I turn around and say, hey, Brian, let's make a game together. Here's my vision. Well, obviously, if Brian's going to attach his name to it, he's going to have some ideas. He's going to have some vision of his own, right? Well, now you've got a pair of people with a combined vision. Okay, sometimes that might work too. Obviously, the original vision is going to get diluted. Unless I go to Brian and say, Brian, I'm going to pay you $35 an hour. You're going to do exactly what I tell you when I tell you. And please do not give me any input. That's the only other way you're going to get a direct vision by me. Okay. So then you need a graphics guy, right? Because your programmers aren't graphics guys. We're programmers. Okay. In order to hone an art, you can't do it part-time. All right, let's be honest. There's some people that happen to have that creative ability to cross graphics and sound and music and coding, but you don't see it very often. The greatest coders are not the greatest artists. And I can tell you the greatest artists are not the greatest coders. Okay? And then, so what are you looking at now? Now you're looking at a team of 5 people. Music, sound, video, and a couple of programmers. Right? Now you don't have a vision. Sorry, I didn't mean to snort there. Now you have no longer a vision. You have a team project. You now have a SourceForge project is what you have. Okay? And this is where the creative differences problems come in. right? The graphics guy doesn't want to have his name on something that he doesn't feel good about. So he's got to basically have his way in terms of the graphics. The sound and music guy, the music guy's got his thing, but the sound guy, he pulls out the effects CD and says, okay, here, right? So what you're talking about is a team environment. Teams are not known for creative vision, especially teams that are being financed by a development house who is being financed by a publisher. Okay, because guess what? The house has to answer to the publisher. The publisher has to answer to marketing and their stockholders. Okay, so what has happened is creativity in that concept of vision is gone as soon as you leave 1, 2, maybe 3 people at the helm. Okay, so a commercialized modern remake of a classic game simply won't work, or at least a classic feeling game. So what would have to happen in order to take an actual classic game and bring it forward into this decade? Well, this century maybe, I guess, would be better. What needs to happen there? Well, obviously, a game has to be taken and not monkeyed with. You cannot change the original game. It has to play exactly as we remember it. If it doesn't, we're going to be upset. And for God's sakes, don't make that the unlockable. Don't take the game and totally trash it and then say, oh, but we included the original as an unlockable. All you got to do is finish this worthless piece of crap we put together, and then you can play the original. Screw that. Or don't say, oh, well, the inferior Game Boy version is more what you're looking for, sir. We have an immersive storyline. We have 16-player online multiplayer game for Pac-Man. Don't tell me that crap. There are great games that can be ported. But see, we can't do that because publishers don't want that. They have marketing telling them our customers don't want that. The stockholders want to see 20 million games that make $100 million. To them, that's value. To them, that makes their money worthwhile, right? I could turn around and say, yeah, but you know what? It'd take you $20,000 to remake Montezuma's Revenge, Montezuma's Castle, whatever that Montezuma game is. I can never remember. $20,000, and you could make $1 million, a couple million. That looks pretty good. That's what, 5 times your money back? What a deal! No. That's not enough money. That's not worth our time, said the stockholders, right? Says the publisher, says the house. Making $80 million or $80,000 isn't enough money. That's profit. That's not enough. So we need to make $10 million games that make $50 million. That's what the kind of profits we're talking about. That's why you're not going to see this. Here's the only way you're going to see this, folks. The only way you're going to see this is in independent gaming. And we have an independent developer here this month, this show, that's going to tell you about what it's really like out there and how it really works out and why it's getting more and more difficult for the classic independent gamer to actually make a living, to actually make games that people play. It's a sad state of affairs. I've got Dino Eggs sitting on the back burner, and I got to tell you, my graphics guy has made Dino Eggs look great. And Dino Eggs still has the exact same unbelievable gameplay as it always has. Someday I might actually finish it. To me, that's the only way that you can really do it right. But I don't believe that you could get a commercial product out of that marriage. It's just not possible. Which leaves the independent gamer. Now, the independent gamer still has bills. He has a family to feed, right? He cannot afford to hire a graphic artist to come in and do stuff. He cannot hire a professional musician to come in and score his thing. He cannot hire, Graphics R Us and have 3D rendered intros and outros and cutscenes for his games. And he's probably not a very good graphic artist to begin with. So he is up against the wall. Even if you could get a pair up a programmer and a graphic artist that have the exact same vision to recreate classic games with modern technology, you're still talking about, can they make a living? Can they survive doing that? Because if you ain't getting paid for it, it becomes a SourceForge project. And we know how those go. Yeah, you have the occasional winners, but then you also have the 7 million projects that never get off the ground, never get finished, never work out. They have a beta build that only works on Linux or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure it's possible anymore. I would like to think that it is. I'd like to think that it's possible for the classic games to be brought forward. And I think under close supervision, close scrutiny, and a will and desire on the part of publishers, developers, someday, I'm hoping, maybe after the second video game crash that I continue to predict, maybe after that, the publisher will say, you know what? We're doing this the wrong way. We've been feeding the same crap to line our pockets, but we've oversaturated the market so much, we need something different. They are going to go back and tap those titles, folks. You know why? Because they don't have any developers anymore. Developers are gone. They have level builders. They have weapon builders. They have map cartographers now. That's what they've got. Oh, sure, there's still developers there, but they're from the new generation. They're from the generation that grew up dreaming of making their own first-person shooter. Now, I want to ask you, those of you who listen to the show, what did you dream about when you were growing up? All of us wanted to write video games, so let's not even make that a point. Every one of us wanted to write video games, but what did you want to write? Was it dreaming about it, writing the same thing that everybody else has written 100 times? Probably not. But modern day game developers, and you see it all the time. Around here they run commercials in the afternoons about, did you know that the video game industry has now surpassed Hollywood? You have all the tools you need except for one. Come to our school and we'll teach you how to make millions of dollars being a video game developer. That's what's going on. It is a commodity. It's not the soulful art that it used to be. It's about making cash. Right? I'm sure there's still developers out there. In fact, I know one that will be listening to the show right now who shall remain nameless. That I think he works for Electronic Arts now, sadly enough. I wonder if he even gets time to listen to this. He works for a subdivision, folks. I know he's still got soul. But you know what? He's not the one calling the shots. He's sitting in the cube doing what he's told. He likes it. But is it that art form that we once grew up with? Is it that art form that we knew and loved? When David Crane would lock his ass in a closet for 8 months, and then when he got around to it, when it was done and he was happy with it, then he turned over to marketing and said, go make us some money. And you know what? That worked. Don't give me any crap about, well, it's different now. No, it's not. No, it's not. It can still work that way. Give the man a creative edge. Let him do what he's supposed to do, which is design, create, and develop video games. It could happen. I kind of merged this topic here with programming classic-like video games and redoing video games. But I think they kind of work hand in hand. I think they require the same scenarios, the same situations. I don't know if we're going to be able to see that anymore. I don't know. It's something to think about. And it worries me that, we no longer have a 2D handheld. I mean, the Game Boy Advance is still out there, but the Nintendo DS, the new upcoming PlayStation Portable, 2D's gone. 2D's officially dead. The last nails, as soon as the Game Boy Advance has stopped production, we no longer have a 2D outlet, folks. It's over. You can say, what about the TV games? Oh, God, don't even start me on that. There's only been one so far that's been any good, and we're going to talk about it this month. The rest of them have been half-ass productions. Half-ass line our pockets with the classic gaming fad. But that's a whole nother rant altogether. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little rant on our Christmas holidays. Not very Santa-like of me to get all enraged. But, that's part of why I call this the rant. But I call it an editorial commentary, because that's more politically correct. With commercial game developers pretty much losing their mind, a lot of us, those of us who are interested in innovation, quality, and not necessarily eye candy or the texture count or pixel count or whatever of modern gaming, we turn to the independent developer. That's the one or two guy shops, just like the old Activision started off. These one and two guy shops that put together amazingly innovative games that never get any shelf space because simply they do not have a $10 billion budget. One of these independent developers is here with us today, actually on the phone. We're going to try out our new phone tap. It's not perfect, but it gets the job done. It's going to open up a whole lot of doors for us to get interviews, folks. So we're going to try it out this month with Michael Welch of Blitwise.com, Blitwise Productions. If the name Michael Welch sounds rather familiar to you, if you're an old Amiga head, he was responsible for the best-selling title Scorched Tanks, which sounds familiar because you probably heard of Scorched Earth. Well, Scorched Tanks takes the concept of Scorched Earth and makes it into a real game, not just a random shooting gallery. Scorched Tanks was probably one of the best-selling titles on the Amiga of all time. Michael did very well with it. He's now developing PC titles, of course, like everybody else who moved from the Amiga, including Pocket Tanks, which is a light version of Scorched Tanks, and his new game, Super DX Ball, which is a different sort of Breakout. It's still Breakout, more or less, but it's more akin to Mega Ball from the old Amiga days, right? So we're going to have Michael hop on the phone here and tell us a little bit about his game, and more importantly, maybe a little bit about what it's like to be an independent developer who's still trying to keep good values, the good, honest buck for honest work. It's fascinating to be able to get an inside look, because a lot of people that I've talked to, a lot of people on our forums, a lot of people that listen to the show, all wonder what it'd be like to be an independent game developer. Well, here it is. Here's Michael Welch, Blitwise Productions.
Anyway, folks, this is Michael Welch, and he's been in the independent game development business for about how long, Michael?
Oh, gosh. Has it been 18 years? Not really. I mean, I've been programming for 18 years. I'd say 1993, really, when I started with Scorched Tanks.
Well, now, speaking of Scorched Tanks, let's talk a little bit about, because a lot of people may not know your name or the projects that you've been associated with. Give them a little history, a little background on yourself and the titles you've done and the platforms you've worked on.
Well, back in the day, I started on the Commodore 64, but I didn't really get into, programming well until I got into the Amiga. So, and actually, I ended up working with you with Dark Unicorn Productions there, and
always a good backstory.
Oh yeah, well, that was Scorched Tanks on the Amiga. So yeah, I'm an old Amiga person. So, and I'm still an Amiga person. In fact, I pretty much pretend my PC's an Amiga. you do what you got to do to make games, And
so what are the titles other than Scorched Tanks did you do on the Amiga?
Oh, actually, you know what? That's the only one that I ever released.
Now, a lot of people claim, well, Scorched Tanks is just a knockoff of Scorched Earth, which is a knockoff of Artillery. Give us a little philosophy, a little background on the whole Scorched Tanks project, because most people, including myself, believe that there's really no comparison with Scorched Tanks with the older ones. There are just too many cool nuances and different ideas and thoughts. Give us a little background on what you were thinking when you made Scorched Tanks.
Well, it's kind of funny, really, because the story kind of goes like this. I was a diehard Amiga person, and I went over to a friend's house who had a PC, and he says, well, you got to come over and try this game. I'm like, oh, all right. I mean, how good can it be? We're talking EGA graphics. We're talking, way back. And he shows me Scorched Earth, and I'm just like, we play 5 rounds, and I'm just stunned. But I didn't own a PC, and I didn't have access to a PC, so all I did is I played those 5 games, and that was all I ever saw of Scorched Earth. 5 quick games over maybe an hour, and that was it. So I basically went home thinking, man, it's just not right that the Amiga doesn't have an Artillery game like that. So I basically just, recreated Scorched Earth from scratch in my head, and adding, based on the limitations that I had with the Amiga, scrolling is, I couldn't make that high-resolution screen, so I had to make it really cool and, do the scrolling and stuff. So scrolling terrains and, I just, did the nice graphics because I always thought that Scorched Earth wasn't graphically appealing. So, I talked to Sidewinder, the guy that did the music for Scorched Tanks, and then I had cool music, and these are all things that Scorched Earth never had. So that's pretty much how it came about. It was really just, I didn't have anything to compare it to. I knew that there was tanks, and they shot stuff at each other, and there were shields. And beyond that, I just recreated it from scratch.
Now, there were a lot of weapons in Scorched Tanks that I mean, Scorched Earth had, I think, like 20 weapons back then, like the first incarnation, maybe?
Believe it or not, I have no idea.
Me neither.
I only played it 5 times.
I guess I guess I should have looked that one up. But if I remember right, the weapon selection was pretty sparse, and most of them had to do with, multiple warhead shots, and that was pretty much it. Yeah. Now, Scorched Tanks, the very first version that you remember releasing, how many weapons did you have?
Oh,
Rough.
That's a tough question. I think I topped out around 80 or 90 at the end. I probably had at least 40 or 50. I'm not sure. There was quite a few.
And by the end, I think you're up to, 60 or 80 weapons in there, right?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, and that's where I finally, with Pocket Tanks, I finally achieved my goal of reaching 100. So it just took me a few years.
Now, let's talk a little bit about that. Now, a lot of people don't know that you moved over to the PC and you started doing some titles, and Pocket Tanks was sort of your light solution for Scorched Tanks on the PC.
Yeah, it just kind of worked out perfectly. I didn't really realize that on the PC there was this thing called casual gamers. Like, I didn't know. I had been working on Scorched Tanks for the PC. You know how it is when you start a game and you write something that people like, and then you spend the rest of your life wishing you could finish the next version.
Sure.
Well, that's kind of what happened with Scorched Tanks. Is I never could seem to get back to making it. And in the end, I kind of took what I had with the engine on the PC after trying to write it since '95. This is like 2000. And so 5 years later, I finally just kind of cobble things together, and I take what I had, and then I spruce it up with my current understanding of, true color graphics and stuff like that. And it ended up being, let's just make this game simple. We're just going to have 2 tanks, we're going to have, 10 rounds, and that's all there is to it. And it was basically, and there's no shields. I mean, the limitations were all there because I just wanted to show that I could still write a game. But somehow it was just so light and fluffy that it was absolutely perfect for the existing PC market. It was quite lucky.
Some of the things, there's a few things between, say, Scorched Tanks and Pocket Tanks that are a little bit different, but you've managed to keep the style and the methodology between the games the same. I mean, you're still trying to make retro-looking and feeling games even on a PC, right?
Oh, yeah, and that pretty much is a theme I think I'm going to carry through. I don't know. I mean, if I ever have to make something really modern looking, I can. But there's a part of me that really just likes the black background. I like the vivid contrast. And that's what I really miss in modern games, is that everything is just, there's lots of textures. And I don't know, just something is lost in that. And there's a purity in the minimalist nature of the way games used to be that somehow just appeals to my mind better. I mean, I know that more people like games these days, it's more culture, more of the culture likes it, and just overall games are, better received. But hey, I was a gamer back when games were really cool and not for everyone. And those are the kind of games that aren't getting written anymore. So that's what I'm doing. I just kind of, I write them for myself and I write them for my family, and other people seem to like them too, I guess. So.
Now, one of the big things that so far, of course, myself, I've bitched at you constantly about, and other people have mentioned to me too that have looked at Pocket Tanks, is the lack of scrolling. Now, you have a mindset, a feeling about that. And what was your thought on taking the scrolling out of Pocket Tanks?
Well, actually, it's a technical limitation. See, when I was working on the engine for Pocket Tanks, one of the things I was really bent on was making it cross-platform. See, when I first started the Pocket Tanks project, I was working on an engine that was cross-platform so I could run it on the new Amiga hardware, because that was back when Amiga was still potentially coming out with hardware, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I just want to, I want to take my engineering to the next level and figure out how to do everything all cross-platform. So, but one of the problems with cross-platform is that you have to do everything in software for absolute compatibility, which removes hardware, and of course, me being an Amiga person, the only way I can achieve a decent frame rate is to not scroll the entire screen. So, I mean, I basically choose, high frame rate cross-platform over, hardware dependent, not being able to port it on any other system, or, having to deal with the compatibility issues of OpenGL across different platforms, or, you can't do anything with DirectX. So, I mean, I needed hardware to do scrolling, in my opinion, and I can't do it. So the pure answer, and the answer where I can make games and support them for the next 30 years, is to do something that's, future-proof. So future-proofing and high frame rate, superseded scrolling screens. Now, it's getting to the point where I probably could do a scrolling screen for the next version of Scorched Tanks, which I'm still claiming to write. So, and I have every intention to write it, but I'm really just waiting for that time when scrolling is just going to work.
And now you mentioned cross compatibility. What other stuff? What other platforms are you supporting? What other work are you doing that a lot of our listeners may not know about?
Oh, well, in terms of cross-platform, well, right now the engine is working on Mac OS 10, and as a matter of fact, you could almost count these as separate platforms: Mac OS 10, Mac OS 9, and Mac OS 8.6. Now, supporting all three of those is kind of like three jobs, but yeah, we support all different, varieties of Mac, so long as it has Carbon support. And I did have my engine running on Linux for a while, and I'd love to release on Linux if I could just feel good about doing a binary release. So I think the time is coming. I just can't release my code because people do a lot of weird stuff with it. I'm afraid what would happen. I mean, you take a popular game and release the source code while you're still trying to sell it, and it just doesn't work for me. So I need a. But you know what? Honestly, I could port my game to any platform probably in a week. I've had many people ask me if I'd port to MorphOS or if I'd port to some of the other ones. I'm trying to think. There's like a BOS. There's a couple of different versions of BOS. And, all that is possible, and it wouldn't even take that long. But that's why I did the cross-platform. See, I didn't want to give up that just to add in scrolling.
So what's give us an idea. I mean, a lot of our listeners here are spurring game developers themselves. They've got the feeling that they may want to get into the business, or they're interested in recapturing their childhood through rebuilding their favorite games themselves, since it seems that so few people are actually taking the good games from the past and remaking them instead of remaking last year's games. You have any thoughts on that? I mean, in terms of, obviously the Mac people you've mentioned to me at one time are very grateful gamers, but is there money to be made there?
Oh, well, money is important. It depends on if you want to do this full-time or not. But, yeah, the Mac market is solid. In fact, I would go so far as to say that if you wanted to start a business, I would say start on the Mac. It's a small, tight-knit group of extremely enthusiastic people, which reminds me a great deal of the Amiga. I'm very grateful for the Mac market. I don't sell as many, but hey, what do you expect? The Mac's only 2%. The fact that I sell enough on the Mac to even warrant consideration, it's just the percentage is it's inspiring. The Mac people it's just awesome. So yeah, go ahead. Now I will say this about Mac programming. Boy, is it hard, and it's really quite unforgiving on the programmer. So I don't know what it is about Macs, but they're just great to use. And but man, when it comes to programming, it's tough. It's tough. It's a lot easier to program on the PC. So when you get something on the Mac, it's written by somebody who really put a lot more work into it. So.
Could that be just because there's just not the solid set of development tools over there on the Mac, just because there's just not the market to warrant it?
No, it really has nothing to do with the tools. It really has more to do with the APIs, and Apple is rather tenacious in forcing people to forget about the past, and they force other kinds of GUI interface problems. Like, for instance, probably the weirdest thing on the Mac you could do is try to move the mouse, and there's probably Mac people out there that are cringing as I say that, because for some reason there's this cult concept that thou shalt never move the cursor, move the user's mouse, ever. But that's really important when you're a game programmer. So,
well, yeah,
so you have
a very interesting sideline there on the Mac world. What's the basis of that? Is that, do you have any knowledge of why that little stigma became so ingrained, or?
Oh, it's got to be because of the way Mac sets up its APIs. The Apple, just in general. They're very strange about their APIs, and they really force people to not do certain things without, great difficulty. So Apple sets the standard. Like long time ago, with 8.6, they didn't have a real file system. They did, but it was nothing like on Unix or the PC. It was more like these files were all in the hard drive, and there was no paths, and everything just had an ID. And trying to get that to be compatible with an existing directory tree inside of a PC or Unix, it's foreign. And then that's just one example. So you got the mouse and you got the file system that's random now. It's really strange. So yeah, it's tough. Programming on the Mac is tough, but I swear they're so much more grateful. they're a great bunch. It's much more fun to release on the Mac. I'm looking forward to releasing my next game on the Mac soon, actually. So.
And we're going to get to that. We're going to talk a little bit about that in the future. What about you mentioned Linux, that you were kind of cringing on the concept of developing for that and supporting that. So give us a little bit of your thoughts on the whole open source thing. I know that obviously you're not real pleased about that, since, like you said, if you're trying to sell something. But is it not true in your experience that Linux people seem to have, as a group, as an organization, seem to have sort of a problem with buying and selling software anyway?
You know what? I think that's changing, believe it or not. I was at the IGC, which was in Eugene, Oregon, about a month or two ago, maybe a month ago. And I spoke to a fellow there that was a very enthusiastic Linux developer. And, there weren't many people at the conference that were as enthusiastic as him, so I went and hung out. So, Linux people just in general are a lot more enthusiastic. But, and I asked a few questions like that. What's the deal with binary distributions? Are people going to give me a hard time? I want to support Linux. I want to. I mean, even if I'm not going to make, sell anything, I would like to be able to release something on Linux that would just be decent, and just do what I do. And if people want to, pay for it, fine or not. But the thing is I have my doubts. But apparently, there are now companies that will sell Linux games. They'll help you, get things set up to work on the different platforms and stuff like that too. So, yeah, somebody actually gave me their card. So, and I asked several people, and they all seem to think that Linux is, people are just sick and tired of not having any games. So I think there may be a possibility there, and I'll have to let you know. I think that right now we're working on a Linux, a new Linux version of the engine. So I'll have to let you know. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's worth it. I mean, all I ever hear, though, is that, when there's Linux... sorry, I'm getting off topic, but when somebody tries to release a game on Linux, there's always binary file issues. So, because there's lots of different flavors of Linux, so...
There's more builds of Linux than there were models of Amiga, as I recall.
Yeah, you could say that. And there's
pretty scary all on its own.
Yeah, it's almost like they really need the source code. I mean, the best I could do at this point is just release versions for all the major distributions. So I'll have some computer that's got 20 distributions on it, and that'll be what I do. Now, I don't really know the facts on this. I'm assuming that I'll have to do that. Maybe I'll get lucky. Maybe there's some, enough of the libraries are standard or whatever. It's infinitely more complicated than releasing a binary distribution on Mac or PC. So you just got to be willing to go to the next level just because it's cool. And that's really the only reason why I would do it, is because it's cool.
There are worse reasons for doing it, I guess. So let's see. Let's take you off the Amiga platform now. You moved into the PC realm about when?
That was 1995.
Used to be a lot of us made that move around then.
Well, I was getting out of college and things like that, and I kind of needed to move on. And I was a little. I didn't move because I wanted to move. I really wanted to be, doing something a little more mainstream. So it was, and in fact, I have not recovered from switching from the Amiga. So it's not like it was a pleasant experience. But yeah, in '95, I ended up getting a PC and learning about DOS and doing DOS 4GL and 32. Oh man, yeah, that was some crazy stuff.
A whole new thing on its own. Now you formed a company for your PC titles, right?
Yep.
Why don't you go ahead and plug that, give them the URL to get there.
Oh, well, I created a company about 3 years ago called Blitwise Productions. The URL is www.blitwise.com. That's BLITWISE.com. It's kind of a play on, blitting and sprites. It's an Amiga thing. So people always ask me, is that Bytewise or is that Bitwise? Anyways. Yeah, and I released Pocket Tanks about 3 years ago, an artillery game, and that's been really quite successful. Successful being relative. I live in one of the most inexpensive parts of the country here in the U.S., and I have this tiny little house. It's called an EJ house. There's lots of them in my neighborhood. There were millions of them made, well, thousands. But it's just it's not like I'm I'm just a small developer, one man operation, and thankfully I found a product that actually sells enough that I can finally do this full time. I paid my dues. I did all the contract work and stuff. It's you just got to treat it like a business. But so there was Pocket Tanks and then there's Scorched Tanks no. Sorry. There's Super DX Wall, which I just released last week. So, and that's being received rather interestingly. I think it's mostly just Pocket Tanks people that are thankful that I released something else are buying it. So the market's really changed, and who really needs another breakout game? But actually, it's a very retro game, and I did a lot of things to make it seem Well, there's, the black backgrounds and the vivid colors, and there's no textures. It's all the minimalistic stuff. And I spent an entire year just working on the editor, and a lot of it's inspired by MC Escher and the tessellation and other various things that you just never expect to be used in video games. So
let's go back real quick before we start talking about Super DX Ball in detail. You mentioned that Pocket Tanks was successful. Now, a lot of people that write to me and say, how many can I sell? Give me kind of a base idea. I mean, without going into numbers, I know that's kind of personal and all that, but just kind of an idea. I mean, what's a game like Pocket Tanks? What can that make you? What can you expect to see of a return on something like that if somebody wanted to get into the business?
Well, let's see.
How many units did you sell, say, the first year?
The first year?
Yeah, something like...
I don't really have any of those numbers. Honestly, I'm one of those people that doesn't really keep track. All I can tell you is that I'm paying the bills. But, well, I could give you numbers and everyone could get lots of hope. But I'm just really, I want to encourage people to do what they love. But I don't really know why Pocket Tanks works. And I think that if somebody was to try to make a game, and I've seen this too many times, it's getting to the point where it's getting frustrating. But too many times I've seen people, take this, take a lot of time and, just make a game and, bet it all, and then it doesn't work. So I don't really know why it has the magic. But, if you do manage to make a game like Pocket Tanks and it sells by itself somehow by some kind of miracle, I think back then I was selling 10, 12, 15 a day.
For the whole period of a full year, you think you were making those numbers?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't even dream about that. I was lucky to sell 12 or 15 copies, period.
Well, you're in trouble if you're not selling at least a couple a day.
Exactly right.
And it's hard to, and I've heard too many people just not reach those numbers, and you can't live on that. In fact, it's only a hobby at that point. So, and it's taken me 2 years to write Super DX Ball. I mean, this is just about the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. When you're your own boss and you're making your own stuff, there's nobody harder on you than you. And I've never pushed myself harder. So it's pretty interesting. Getting here was one thing, and then staying here is completely different. So there's a whole other perspective once you've achieved it, and then it's different. So I encourage people to try it. It's quite a thing.
How possible is it? I mean, realistically speaking, we're kind of alluding to this as we're talking, but what's the realistic outlook for the independent programmer? I mean, do we have a very short half-life in front of us, do you think?
Well, that's a tough question.
Hey, I ask the tough questions. My listeners want to know.
You know what? I think things are changing. The market is getting bigger. People are spending a lot more money. People aren't afraid to use their credit cards on the internet anymore. But I think what's happening is that shareware, or the concept of shareware, which is where most of this, the one-person teams or the small teams are releasing through, independent, not commercial yet, where people are thankful that you even write games and, appreciate your talent and putting, your free time into it. I think that it's going to be harder to get people's attention. So I think, a lot of what I've been hearing lately is that if you didn't make it 3 years ago, then you're just going to have to wait for the next big opportunity.
What exactly does that mean?
Well, I've heard it said in several places, and somehow I managed to hit the mark with Pocket Tanks. But, there seems to be this flow within the independent game developers, this concept that there was the golden age was 3 years ago. There was a period of time that was about 3 years ago when that was when you got in. And that's when you got in and people were caring about shareware and people were caring about games. And this was, right before the portals really took off. So, but, and so download.com was great, for games and things like, and it was just a good time to just get the product out. Now, granted, a bad game will never sell. And sometimes no matter how hard people work, you're not going to be able to write a good game. But now I'm seeing, but back then if you released a good game, you were guaranteed to sell at least 5 a day. Anything that was even marginally respectable. People built their houses and their lives and their livelihoods and their, on this. But, we're talking 3 years later, and real developers, or real shareware developers, are actually failing. People are going out. So, the climate has changed. I can't say that it's a good time to get into this, but you know what? That is not why I program games. I've always, I've been programming since I was 12, and I just can't stop.
Your wife might disagree with you on that.
What's that? My wife? Oh, well, things have changed. But, I've managed to hang on to my dream.
That's a good thing.
You do what you got to do. I did the whole, full-time programmer thing and stuff, too. I was, they were sorry to see me go, and in fact, they'd probably have me back quite happily. So, you get a cool opportunity, and you just got to run with it. So, if your spouse is willing.
Exactly right. Always have an exit strategy, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so one more thing about Pocket Tanks. We're going to move on because a lot of the listeners, of course, here are diehard old Amiga people, and they're trying to keep alive some of the magic that they've experienced. And our forums our forums are back. If you haven't figured that out already, and we're talking a lot about trying to recapture that magic. In my last month's show, we talked about the Cherry High. I don't know if you had to listen to last month's show, but the Cherry High is that feeling that you got when you first put in that certain game or something, and then for the rest of your life, you're jabbing a vein trying to find that Cherry High again, and it just seems to be kind of a lack of. So a lot of the folks are trying to turn back and try to find newer equivalents to what they're so used to playing. And I think Pocket Tanks is a very it's an interesting segue there because so many people played Scorched Tanks. You sold so many copies of that thing, and it was, I think, the end of everything. It was the best-selling shareware game ever on the Amiga, wasn't it?
Oh, well, I think a lot of people would. I don't know. I mean, I sold 500 copies, and frankly, for 500 people to write a check and stick it in an envelope and mail it to me, that's huge.
Yeah,
that was huge. That was enough to convince me that, hey, you know what, maybe I should, program more games.
Yeah, maybe that's something that's interesting. Maybe let's segue on that for just a quick minute. Right now, if you threw a game out on the internet, you could hit Digital River, you could have all this processing online, you could pay with PayPal. Paint a little picture of what it was like to do a shareware game back on the Amiga back in, what was that, like 91, 92-ish?
Yeah, I think it was 93, actually.
Okay. I thought it was in there somewhere.
Oh, well, releasing my first game. Well, gosh, I never really intended to make any money. All I did was, I was just making the best game that I could, and I had to finish it sometime. I had 3 months. I was on summer break. I was in my first year of college, or between my first and second year of college. I had 3 months. So I wrote a tank game. And I just, got to the end of the, I'm not sure, I think I released in October. It got to the end of the summer, and I had to do some polishing. You know how that is. It takes a lot of time. But then I think, well, gee, all these other people just, put their name and their address and, how much they want. And, I just quite naively just, did that. And I released the game, and I think it was like a week or two later, and I still email the guy every now and then. But I got my first letter in the mail, and I'll never forget it. Somebody actually sent me money. It wasn't a business plan. It was just some squirrely college student. So I'm like, holy smokes, actually. So I mean, just getting one order through the mail was enough to just have me program for years and years and years. So I was very enthusiastic, and that just caused me to make new versions and just explore. I had no idea that people actually would like what I did. So, and then over time, what would happen is I started getting more orders in the mail. And I was, getting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 a day. It was starting to become a lot of work. And that's when I started to think a little bit more business-like about it, because, when you have to, handwrite, 5 letters a day and duplicate discs and stuff envelopes, and, it becomes a serious effort. So, then I had fun shopping at Office Max and things like that. But it was very different. I had absolutely no business plan or anything like that. And even today, I don't really have a business plan. I still make what's cool. It's just that the current ways of selling are just a little easier.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, people have to understand how you started. I mean, there was really no internet. I mean, you posted on AnyNet, right?
And actually, it was Genie. Somebody else posted it. I didn't even know who it was. Somebody just posted there for me.
Hey, it might have been me. I ran the Starship Amiga group on Genie for quite a while.
Cool.
It might have been me.
That was a very cool place to hang out.
It was, and I think there was like 5 or 6 moderators, but I think I was the only one that was ever on there on a regular basis. So yeah, that's interesting. It's funny how you come full circle. You still run into people that you knew on Quantum Link, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Oh, good grief. Yeah.
That's but it's not like today where you buy a domain, you throw a game up, you link it to Digital River, and you sit back and watch money come, or you had download.com to post to. I mean, it was a very different time, very different life, and to make the change like you did, I don't think a lot of people made that move.
Well, I mean, it's easy to say, I only sold 500 orders. Why would I ever think that? And in fact, I lived my life like that for a long time. I went and worked for other people and did all sorts of stuff. So, but honestly, it was better releasing back on the Amiga. It was just more fun. So these days, there's a lot of business to it, and I really have to work hard to make sure that I'm staying true to my values, because I see a lot of people around me who are just doing this for a buck, and I'm so sick of playing games that are just. I mean. My patience level for current modern games is either it attracts my attention, I play it, or it's got like a minute worth of playtime. So, I mean, I've played them all, and so I have to write a game that appeals to me, and I would rather play games written by people like me, that know what's good and why it's good and how it's good, and have what really pulls in someone like me who's been playing games for so long. It's sometimes you see some of the games that come out these days, and it's just amazing that they even sell. But so I have a different kind of standard, and yeah, it was a different time, that's for sure.
Speaking of modern games, and we are going to get back to Super DX, I promise. Is there any modern game now that you're playing? I mean, we talk every single time we do an interview. We always ask, "Are you playing anything now? And if you are, what is it and why?"
Oh, well, at the moment, I'm not playing anything. I played Fable, and I beat it in 12 hours.
My goodness, so how's that for return on investment?
Well, being a father of 2 and a husband, it was pretty good. But I have to admit that it wasn't long enough. It was, when I commit to a game like that, I need it to be longer. I made a commitment to play that game. I needed something more like Knights of the Old Republic, where I'm playing for 50 or 60 hours and I feel like really awesome that I have a lightsaber. That was a cool game. And that's probably the last big game I played. But I played Fable, and I played it all the way through, and it was just too easy. So
the developer actually apologized for that game, and I can't remember why. It obviously wasn't up to the standards that he had envisioned for it. What did you obviously didn't have that retrospective feeling on that?
Well, his apology was, from what I understand, it was based on not meeting up to what he had promised, and it had nothing to do with what I didn't like about it. I mean, okay, I love Fable. I think it's awesome, except that it ended too soon. But his apologies were more about, well, we promised all these features, and I mean, if he wants to apologize about that, fine. But I think really he probably should have apologized about how, it only took 12 hours to beat it the first time, and I don't have the patience to play it again. I know a lot of people do. I don't understand that philosophy at all. But a lot of people like to play through these role-playing games multiple times.
Well, and in some games, there are some role-playing games, to be fair, that do have multiple paths that do give you an incentive to play it again. But more times than not, it's get it, finish it, move on to the next thing.
Oh, well, definitely.
Do you think that that's really what's behind? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, there are ways of extending the value of a title longer than 12 hours. And it's not so much. I mean, if you look at Champions of Norath, for example, I mean, they've gone through so far as to say, well, when you're done playing the game, we'll let the title build new adventures for you at random, so you can play different games every single time you play if you want to. Or
yeah, but that's an online PlayStation game, isn't it?
Yeah, sure is.
So they're getting your money every month, so they want that.
No, actually, it's free on the PlayStation 2 anyway.
Oh, so online play is free?
Yes. It's free for all PlayStation games. Huh. Hence why I do not own an Xbox. Well, no, there's about 5 million reasons I don't own an Xbox, but that was amongst the many, many decisions that I made when I said I'm going to support a modern gaming console finally. So, yeah, that was definitely one of them. There is no cost for online play. But however, to me, this is broken record time. I'm not a real big online player anyway. I don't like people in general. You know, sans my loyal listeners here, of course. But people tend to piss me off. You know, they cheat. They spend 22 hours a day that they're not sleeping, playing the games. It's just, you know, the people that I encounter, and I actually did this just as a test. I picked up Champions of Norath specifically to see if I could get back into online gaming. And the first game I got into, all of my suspicions were completely confirmed. I had cheaters, lifer, dig-it dogs that had already played through this dungeon a million times, left me behind, were totally boneheads on the speaker mic configuration. And it's like, okay, I guess I'll wait another 10 years and I'll try it again.
I have to confess that I really like EverQuest. I don't
play it
anymore because it's
other people.
It was a fiendish addiction. Fiendish. It was ruining my development.
I will be very curious to have you listen to the interview we do later on. Maybe we'll have a little follow-up interview sometime that we did with Larry Kaplan, creator of Kaboom. We talked to him, and he's an EverQuest whore now.
Yeah.
And if you listen to it, I'm going to give away a little tiny bit. We talked to him, and he's like, I just play it all the time. And it's like, well, what do you do? How do you play it all the time? What's the draw? And basically, it's a job.
Yeah, it is. It's work.
He goes in and does stuff. He acquires stuff, and he sells stuff. And it's like, how is that fun? That sounds like work.
You know how it's fun? It's fun if you're with a bunch of other people that you know in real life.
He's not.
You all get together, and when you get together, you talk about it, and when you go back online. And you see, the thing is it's all about how much the people around you care. If you're not around anybody that doesn't care about what you're doing, that doesn't matter. But
who has time for that?
If you've got a few loyal friends who play along with you and know the value of things, it's a lot of fun. And I'll warn anybody who's got an interest in addictive. If you've got a problem with addictive behaviors, EverQuest and that's pretty rough.
It's funny because you hear stories, and I've seen it firsthand about people that get up in the morning, play 3 hours, go to work, come home at lunch for an hour and a half, play, come home from work, and play until 12, 1 o'clock, and then repeat the process.
Oh, yeah, I know several people that have been divorced over it. Not that that's a good thing, but
I cannot get my hands around how you can play it that much. I've never had a game that's addicted me to that extent.
Well, being the awkward computer person that I am, it's more fun than reality. You go and you hang out with a bunch of people, and you go to different dungeons, and you plan out what you're doing, and if you're with people that aren't weird, if you're with people that are, have made a commitment to, say, a dedicated group, it's really a lot of fun.
How do you find time for that? I mean, I understand how you have time. You work at home, you're your own boss, you have time anytime you want. What about those of us on a fixed schedule that, work 8-10 hours a day, we have families, we have lives? I don't understand how you can possibly even come up with a methodology where you can get more than one person other than yourself to actually hook up and play with you. Are those the sort of friends that you have, or the ones that have that infinite free time like you?
No, actually, no. The people that I play with are the people I used to work with at my previous business. So no, and in fact, they have kids and stuff like that. It's really what it comes down to when you've got a life and you've got commitments is you got to do a dedicated group, and you pick one night a week. So okay, guys' night out, which I don't do, but let's say a lot of people do. You go bowling. I don't know. I don't bowl. But people do, or maybe you go out one night a week and you go to a bar. I don't know. But if you get one night a week to go do whatever you want, dedicated group EverQuest. We'd rather play EverQuest than bowl.
Well, I'd probably rather throw my legs up over my head and scrape the back of my thighs with a cheese grater than to go bowling, but, that's just me.
Well, yep.
But, hey, then again, I'm not playing EverQuest either, so.
Yeah, that's how you find the time. That's if you get the thumbs up on the spouse, with the spouse, it's you're good to go for playing till midnight.
So there's no other titles that pop out as of late other than Fable?
Well, I do play. I set up a LAN party every couple months, and we do Warcraft 3.
That's almost falling into the retro genre itself now too.
I guess so. But it's a great game. At first, I hated it. I hated it a lot. I hated it so much because I was so into StarCraft, and I was so happy to just like make zillions of units and stuff like that. It was StarCraft was my favorite game. You know, I mean, how can you not respect a game that only plays in 256 colors and will run on a Pentium 100 and is fully networked and it just has the right attitude and the right feel? It was, you know, StarCraft was just as cool as it would get for a modern game in terms of people like me, who like, you know, I don't know, it just worked for me. I don't know. But then there was Warcraft 3 and the Heroes came out and I got really frustrated. But actually now it's a lot of fun. You kind of get used to the whole hero concept, and you know, I love Warcraft 3. That's probably the one game that I keep going back to. So.
All right, let's move on then. Let's talk about Super DX-Ball. Now, you just released this game, what, like 3 days ago from the time of this interview?
Actually, it was 10 days ago, I believe. Mm-hmm.
And at first look, the first thing that people are going to see is it's another breakout game.
Yeah, I get a lot of that.
So, explain to the audience here, one, why you choose to dedicate 2 years of your life to a breakout game. And I know that there's good reasons behind it, which is why I asked the question. And explain why this is not just another breakout game.
Well, let's see. I mean, Super DX-Ball. Well, I mean, I wrote the first DX-Ball back in 1996. And, you know, I released it for freeware because I was working as, miraculously, I managed to get a job in the game industry. So I released it as freeware because I didn't want to get in trouble with my boss. So I released DX-Ball, and somehow DX-Ball became, now it depends on who you ask, but so far as I can tell, DX-Ball was the best breakout game of the time. And it was a free game, and it just spread like crazy. So I really loved Mega Ball, which is why I wrote it. Again, I didn't make it to make money, and in fact, I never did make any money off of DX-Ball. But I just got this PC, and I was just learning how to program it because I was working as a game developer, and I thought, well, gee, you know, my Amiga's not out, but I really love Mega Ball. So my wife really liked playing Mega Ball too. So I wrote a game for her. You know, I'm a game developer, and I felt like I wanted to make a game, but I wanted to make something that you know, for me, always games have always been about trying to reach out to people that normally I can't reach. I'm not really good at talking to people or anything, so I kind of talk through my games. So that's kind of what I do. But so I wrote, you know, DX-Ball as like the next, you know, breakout game that my wife could play because that's what we had set up. We had a PC set up. So for me, it was always a very spiritual thing, you know, a very, you know, I'm doing this for reasons far beyond ever making money, which is the same reason why I made Scorched Tanks too. It was really, I was just fishing for attention. I never expected to get any. And the same thing held true with DX-Ball. And, you know, I put all the work into it, and I released it. So all these years later, you know, I wanted to make a game that was, you know, worthy of DX-Ball, which is really quite difficult. I don't know. I mean, so many people have such high expectations for it. So, I don't know. You kind of, once you've already had one success, you know, it's kind of hard to not be a one-hit wonder. It's easy to just go, oh, I did it, and I never want to try to, you know, achieve this ever again. But I didn't want to chicken out.
Explain the DX-Ball 2 thing in between there, if you would, because that might confuse a lot of people who may have seen DX-Ball 2 but never the original.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a complicated story.
Don't worry, you can use whatever language you want if you'd like.
Oh, no, I only say nice things.
Oh, come on, my listeners hate that.
Oh, well...
Oh, let's get dirty.
It wasn't, really, DX-Ball 2 was not a smooth thing. You know, everything always starts out with the best of intentions. I was working as a regular old programmer doing my day job, and my friend Seamus, who was starting up a game company, you know, just a little shareware thing, you know, was wanting to help me out, and which I never would have done. But you see, this is where it gets complicated because I knew that he was not healthy, he was not well, you know, because we were really good friends, and so I thought, well, I can help him. I can help him if I let him, you know, do DX-Ball, and he's thinking, you know, I can help Mike because Mike's just so pathetic. You know, he's working, he's got a kid, he's working a job, he's given up being a game developer, he's not doing games anymore, it's just sad. So he wanted to take, you know, some of his last things he was going to do on this planet and, you know, try to set things right. So he was helping me, and I was helping him because I had something that I knew was going to sell. which was DX-Ball. And so it kind of went from there, you know. We were like, hey, we're helping each other out, you know. I helped write some window code, and I did some board packs, but, you know, sometimes people don't always agree on things, and, you know, you know, him and his family are just, you know, they're really cool, and they're really, really majorly artistic, and they're really, really majorly, you know, it's just gets complicated. So it got really complicated, and there was a lot of misunderstandings, and I didn't want to just pull it out from under him because I mean, he was not healthy, so he was dying from cancer. So it was just like, you know, what do you do when you let yourself get into these kinds of situations? And I feel like I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, they made a lot of mistakes too, but it's one of those things that you just kind of want to move on. So DX-Ball 2 was this huge success, and they made, you know, a lot of money. And, you know, I made a small percentage, but I guess the hardest part for me was that I just didn't have the control. I couldn't make the kind of decisions that I did with Super DX-Ball. So DX-Ball 2 is in there, and it's really successful, and a lot of people have played it, and that's probably why a lot of people have heard about it, like younger people. So, but it really doesn't jive with my philosophy on game development. But it made lots of money, so it depends on what's more important to you. If you wanted to make lots of money, DX-Ball 2 was probably one of the most successful shareware games that I can think of, except, of course, in Doom or something like that. But if you want to think in terms of, like, you know, what I thought would have been perfect, it missed the mark. So I'm moving on.
All right, let's proceed off of DX-Ball 2. Let's go back to your project.
Oh, is Super DX-Ball?
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about the history of it and why you chose to make it. We just kind of got segued there.
Oh, yeah. Well, with Super DX-Ball, basically, I needed to clear the air. I needed to make a breakout game that was true to the form that I had originally intended. So it's again, when somebody passes away and when you lose a friend, and just the way that it all got kind of strange. So Super DX-Ball was really just my way of saying, well, I'm going to make this breakout game, and I don't care if there's a million breakout games out there. You know, everyone out there is making breakout games for money, and I'm still just making games because they're what needs to be written. I need to write these games. These are, you know, I'm not doing it for the money. I mean, I'm glad that people like it, but you know, it's all about, you know, being true to your vision. So in Super DX-Ball, I think I pushed my skills far beyond anything I've ever done before. Now I know it probably looks like a lot of other breakout games, but you got to understand, you know, a lot of these companies have lots of employees, especially with the new downloadable market, you know. And companies have 10, 11, 12, 13, 20. You know, these downloadable games are not downloadable games anymore. They're not shareware. They're commercial. They're commercial efforts. And, you know, if you want to compare Super DX-Ball to Ricochet, go right ahead, because it compares well in my mind. Especially if you like retro stuff. So, yeah. So,
explain the 2-year development cycle behind that. I mean, you look at Breakout and you say, how the hell can Breakout take 2 years to write?
Well, yeah, that's because I did a lot of research. See, you could bang out a Breakout game pretty quick and easy. But me being the idealistic sort, I do everything procedurally. I render everything manually. I wrote all my own bump mapping algorithms. I did everything in software. I did a lot of research in digital image processing. I bought some really interesting, you know, these are like, you know, books that people use to, you know, do imaging from satellites and stuff. So I'm doing some heavy-duty researching. I'm reverse engineering filters from, you know, Paint Shop Pro and other texture-making programs and stuff. You know, I'm doing stuff that when you look at a regular Breakout game, and what do you see? You see some picture, each brick is made out of, what, an image? You know, that's what you would expect it to be. Or in some cases, the brick is an animated object, you know, it's floating around the screen or something like that, but it's something that an artist drew. But for me, I don't have an artist, so I have to make do. So what I do is I render everything with code. You know, I bevel everything out, and I, you know, add my own lights, and I bump map stuff, and it's all procedurally generated. There's no art. And in fact, when I released Super DX-Ball, I was dead set on not having any textures. It's just going to be the clean, you know, procedurally generated, you know, vibrant, minimalistic colors. And a lot of it's based on tessellation and repeating patterns. It's mathematical stuff. So I have an obsession with graph paper, and ever since I was a kid, even before I was a programmer, I used to draw on graph paper. I used to love doodling robots, and something about locking the graphics down onto the graph paper. I don't know. It's just something in my head. I just like it, and somehow I extended that interest in graph paper, and I thought I finally came up with a way to take an image and bevel it and add the colors, and so it's, I don't know, for me it took me a year just to write the editor. So it's its own graphics program. It's its own tool. I probably could sell it. I keep telling people that if I was ever to not be able to be a game developer anymore, I probably could be a really, really good. I could design floor tile, or I could design quilts. I mean, it's just the kind of tool that it is. So, and that's what I spent a year, with a certain concept of how to organize data such that it would work that way. So,
where'd the other year go?
What's that?
Where did the other year go?
Oh, that was making the game. That was, oh heck, it took me over a month just to get the ball collision routines working. See, there's a lot of different ways that people make breakout games, but of course, I've been doing this for so long, I'm very opinionated. I have a philosophy that there is no such thing as corner bouncing. And to implement a system where there is no corner bouncing, with 45-degree angle bricks, and with the complexity of the bricks that are in Super DX Ball, because they're not squares, you can get in some very, very tight spots. So it took me over a month just to do that. So okay, well, there's 1 month down. I've got 11 months to go. Probably when I was working on when I was researching the bump mapping for how to make the gold bricks look like they bump out. So you can basically take any shape and make it look like it's some kind of punched out piece of gold. So I mean, so a lot of the digital image processing and it's just organizing the assets and stuff too. It just took a long time to get it right. I tend to just polish things until they're perfect. I probably could have released it, after a couple months worth of work, but I'm a perfectionist, and it's a sickness. I can't let things go, so it needed a whole year. I needed a whole year to make it exactly the way I wanted it. So.
Okay, so for those people who are saying, okay, so it's got irregular shaped blocks. Other than that, how does it differ from, say, let's take Arkanoid. Everyone knows what Arkanoid is. Let's take and compare and contrast Super DX Ball with, say, Arkanoid.
I really haven't played Arkanoid that much, but I can tell you what I don't like about Arkanoid.
Well, that's a good start.
I don't like things floating around the screen. They bug me. I especially hate it when a ball hits an alien and it flies off in a seemingly random direction. For me, the most important part of any game that I write is that it seems physically possible. And I think that when you just take a ball and randomly bounce it off a sprite, it's just lame. So that's why, it takes me a month just to write a collision routine for a ball hitting a brick. So it just wasn't realistic. If things aren't perfectly realistic, then it isn't fun for me.
So let's talk about, like, say, the weapons and the special bricks and all of those funky things that you really can't get out of screenshots.
I don't think Arkanoid had exploding bricks, did it?
Well, no, I'm talking about in your title, in Super DX Ball.
Oh, just explaining it in general?
Well, yeah, okay, Arkanoid had some guys floating around, and occasionally you get a weapon drop.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's Arkanoid. Now, you have a lot of weapons. You have a lot of special event weapons. You've got irregular, not just irregular bricks, but things like hidden bricks, things like that. Go into those sort of details.
Oh, well, yeah, there are different kinds of bricks. There's invisible bricks, so that you can't see them, and when you hit them, they pop up, and they're like a glass shattering. And those are kind of fun because they always surprise people on me. And then there's the gold bricks, which are unbreakable. And then there's the pink gold bricks, which are, if you hit a pink gold brick, it turns into gold. So basically, you have to hit it once, even though it never goes away. And then there's of course, what makes the whole game worth playing is the exploding bricks and all the fancy chain reactions. So, when you hit an exploding brick, it explodes everything around it. And I have to say, with the original DX Ball, when you hit an exploding brick, it made perfect sense which bricks were being hit. You were hitting the 8 bricks that were surrounding it in the array. That was very simple. But in Super DX Ball, since you can have, any shaped bricks, and you never know how it's touching, or you have to make all these decisions about, does something explode if it's only touching a corner, and how do you even know when a irregularly shaped brick is touching another one just by its corner? So I had to come up with some really cool algorithms for telling if a brick was touching on an edge or if it was point touching and stuff like that. So, but the exploding bricks basically let you do these just crazy chain reactions, and I have boards that actually take advantage of that too. So you hit one little brick, and then it takes there's kind of like the domino effect where it just keeps going across the screen, and the game just tortures you to keep the ball alive while waiting for this huge contraption to finish. So, and then there's the power-ups, many of which are borrowed directly from Mega Ball, or at least in the original concept. So, actually, as I said, DX Ball is always about what Mega Ball was my favorite breakout game, and it always will be. So I just keep trying to make games that measure up. So most of the power-ups, if you're familiar with Mega Ball, which many people may not be, but the weapons, the power-up stack. So you can have the paddle will grow and the paddle will shrink, but you could also have a grab paddle. So when the paddle touches a ball, or the ball touches the paddle, it sticks, which is a pretty standard Arkanoid sort of power-up. But then you can have lasers too, and that's lasers and grab. And then you could have a fireball, which was new in DX Ball. This is a type of ball that when it hits when it hits a brick, it explodes, blowing away lots of bricks. So that was kind of a new concept. And then there's some other power-ups in the new one where there's a big ball. It's just easier to see, and then an 8-way ball, which just causes lots and lots of balls to be flying all over the screen. So that's really what people like too. It's always kind of fun that you're just kind of playing the game and it's going real slow, and you're breaking bricks. Yeah, it's great. And then you get one power-up, and that power-up helps you take out a lot more bricks a lot more quickly, and all of a sudden you're getting a lot more power-ups. And by the end of the level, you've got 20 balls flying all over the screen, and they're all exploding, and everything's just going crazy. And that's when people go, this is awesome. So I don't think I ever felt that with Arkanoid.
No, it's definitely a different concept, and a lot of people may not have ever seen DX Ball either. So it's kind of good to paint the picture for them. So how do they get Super DX Ball?
Oh, well, you just go to my website, splitwise.com, and there's there's a description of the game, and there's a place to download, and if you like it, you can buy it there too. So it's just it's a shareware game. I'm just trying to pay the bills, and hopefully I get to keep writing games. So. And
what's the cost on that?
Oh, it's $50.99.
And
so a lot of shareware developers like going $20 or $25, but I don't know. When I was a kid, I used to buy those Mastertronic games. And they were only $15. So that's kind of why I keep things under $20.
And the differences between the free download and the registered version?
The registered version, the free version has unlimited play. You can play the first board set for as long as you like. I don't like doing time trials, or I don't like to, cut people off, which is very common in current downloadable games. So you can play as much as you want. You can pass it along to your friends, and you can feel good about doing it because it's never going to shut them down. It's a completely free game. But so the shareware version has one free board set, and then it has 3 demo boards. And in the deluxe version, you get the other boards. One is 15, the one that's free. Then you get 30 more boards for the challenge pack for more difficult boards and a little more geometric shapes and stuff like that. And then you get 30 of the fun pack, which I kind of wrote for my kids and for my family. Instead of having the hard geometric shapes, you have more pictures. You have like a whale, or you have like a picture of Noah's Ark, or you have different kinds of lighter things, nice pictures, a game that my wife would like to play. So, and then of course there's the big huge 75 board retro pack, which is all like DX Ball original rectangular bricks. Just in case you don't like the irregular bricks, there's board types for everyone.
And I understand that there's a kids mode in the game. Talk about that.
Oh, well, yeah. My daughter is 6, and so she's getting to the point where she could play, in normal mode. But it's always kind of sad when you watch kids play, and it's too hard. I mean, DX Ball is kind of a tough game. It's not a light and fluffy breakout game. It's for somebody with a little bit more hand-eye coordination than your average casual gamer. So what I did is I put in a kids mode. And, it makes the paddle big, and it can never get too small. And the ball is, much bigger, and it travels much slower. And it's a gold ball. So it's a special mode in Super DX Ball if you get a gold ball, like if it gets trapped. But it's perpetually gold ball in kid mode, and that means the gold bricks are always breakable. So it's very simplified and slowed down for kids that can play it as young as 3. A 3-year-old could play Super DX Ball in kid mode.
So, you see, I think that's really a kind of a neat thing, and I'm not sure. I mean, it's kind of hard to take a game like, let's say Grand Theft Auto 3 and give it a kids mode. But you'd think that that people would kind of get an idea that there are a wide, diverse age group of game players, and instead of secluding them to a certain, bracket of games, leapfrog stuff, that they could play what mom and dad's playing, just a little more tailored to them. I think that's kind of a brilliant idea, and hopefully in your future projects, and maybe other people who are listening, when they make projects, maybe that's something they can look into. I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah, it's all about sharing it with my family. It's the first DX Ball was about sharing it with my wife, and this game was all about sharing it with my family. And that's pretty much my why I make games. So you always got to include the kids because it's more fun when they care about what you're doing.
So, as I ask all of the programmers that come on the show, what's next? What's in the Michael Welch future for games?
Well, I think like most independent game developers or anyone that writes games, I just have a million ideas. I think in the short-term future, I'm making more weapons for Pocket Tanks. My poor fans. They've been waiting for 2 years. I've got an inbox just filled with requests for more weapons, and I feel bad, but I had to finish Super DX Ball. It had to be done. So there's going to be weapons, and then if Super DX Ball does okay, I'm going to make expansion packs. But I think my next big project is probably going to be either a new version of Scorched Tanks, or it's going to be something based on Warlords. So it'll be like a network playable Warlords with up to 8 players.
Can I put my vote in for the Scorched Tanks now?
Yeah, I figured.
Scrolling and network play, please, if it's not too much to ask.
Network play for Pocket Tanks is coming. In fact, it'll be here. There should be a beta in December. We'll have the first network version. So
let's talk about that, because I want to see how you're planning on implementing the peer-to-peer connectivity. I just lost like 50% of my listeners, but for those of us who are interested in programming and whatnot and have seen really horrible implementations of networking games, how are you planning on making that connectivity between games?
Oh, I'm not exactly sure. I have a friend who's helping me implement it, and it's going to be just kind of a test. So we're going to be using UDP, and we're doing everything from scratch, and we're doing it all cross-platform. So we're going to have it Mac PC, and when the image comes out, we're going to have Linux too. So, but as far as doing the network play, it's going to support. It's going to support internet play, but basically it's going to be LAN play. The concept here is that kids like to play at school, or in colleges or in dorm rooms, which is a lot of where, Scorched Tanks originally was most popular, was in college and in dorms and stuff. I don't know, I can't tell you how many emails I got about people that, said thank you for helping me get through this test, or also thank you for breaking up my marriage, or I lost my job because of you too. But enough of them came through that said, thanks for writing a good free game, or a game that was fun to play in college. So I'm kind of I'm making a game that's going to be LAN support.
How many?
You're going to be able to play Pocket Tanks between the different rooms in the college dorm and stuff like that. Or actually, a lot of kids these days have computers right at their desks. So I don't know, maybe they'll get to do that too. Network Pocket Tanks with their friends.
How many weapons does Pocket Tanks have now? I haven't kept up.
120.
Nice. And you're going to add more to that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you have to understand is that Pocket Tanks is a growing thing. So there's absolutely nothing about Pocket Tanks that has stopped from day one. It's not. I wouldn't say that it's getting bigger at this point, but there is still a demand, and 120 weapons just isn't enough for people. I'm really quite flattered that that people are that interested. So I'm quite fortunate. I don't know how I did it. It's probably from all the suggestions I got from Amiga people over the years. Finally, just they beat it into my brain that I needed to do this. So yeah, there's 120 weapons, and I can see it reaching 200. Pocket Tanks is a game that was written to last forever. It's meant to be classic. I mean, a lot of games you got to do emulators, but I'm intending to support Pocket Tanks for the next 30 years because that's the way it's designed. So I'm thinking way into the future, and there's a lot more to come with Pocket Tanks. I just had to finish this one little project up called Super Text Ball. So,
well, Michael, we really appreciate you taking what turned out to be an hour and 4 minutes of time to come talk to us. Your kids probably need some attention.
Yeah, no problem. It was great. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, it's always fun talking to you. I don't think we've talked on the phone for 3-4 years now.
Oh, it's been a long time.
A long time. Mm-hmm. A long time. Well, very good then. Again, we appreciate it. Is there anything last minute you want to plug or talk about or anything before we kick you loose?
Well, I'd have to say you once you get done playing Super DX Ball, you should go over to retro64.com and pick up a copy of Cosmobots, which is written by my my good friend Mike Bay. So basically, him and I have been doing business forever. He got me to the job in the game industry, and then it's just we've been old Amiga programmers and stuff too. So if you like my stuff, you're gonna like his stuff. Where we've got that one-person game development thing going, and we've got the same kind of business and the same philosophies and stuff too. So yep, go to retro64.com. That's my plug.
What a nice guy! What a nice guy! And he was the guy, by the way, that did Best Friends, which I did talk about on the show previously. So that's a little name recognition there. Did I lose you?
Oh, no, I'm
there. You go. All of a sudden, it got eerily quiet. Anyway, thanks again, Michael Welch from Blitwise.com, the original maker of Scorched Tanks, now the maker of Pocket Tanks, and the new Super DX Ball, Blitwise.com. Thanks again, Michael. We really appreciate having you on the show.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Take care.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, we'd like to thank Michael Welch for taking an amazing amount of time, well over an hour, to sit on the phone with us and talk shop and talk about his new titles and what he's doing in the future. Good stuff. Michael Welch has been a friend of the show, friend of the games, friend of mine for, since 93, I guess. Wow. It's amazing it's been that long. I remember when he did not have a child. I think I remember when he didn't have a wife. It seems so far back. Anyway. That was Michael Welch, Blitwise.com. I'm afraid this month's Bits and Bytes, this episode, this is a special Christmas show. This Christmas show edition of Bits and Bytes is going to be pretty small. Everyone, of course, is down for the holidays. We're not getting a lot of stuff sent out, and honestly, we're not out looking for a lot of stuff. Things kind of slow down after all the main Christmas announcements are over. But we do have a few things to talk about. We're not going to leave you totally dry in Bits and Bytes. And this time I actually checked the links first, Mr. Smartmouth. Okay, the first thing we want to look at here is we got a link sent to us for Acclaim's bankruptcy sale. That's pretty tragic, isn't it? Acclaim Entertainment's world headquarters had their big auction December 7th. And unfortunately, I don't know how long this page is going to be good. So it was good when I said it. Okay? You can look at all of the stuff that they've got for sale, or they had for sale, including office electronics, antiques, home furnishings and appliances, computer stuff, of course, video production, editing equipment, vehicles, and all sorts of stuff provided to you with pictures right here on this poor website, watching Acclaim go down the toilet. Kind of sad, but it's far from over. There will be more companies just like Acclaim folding in the near future. And those of you who've watched the forums know exactly what I'm talking about. All right. Here's another little interesting thing. It's not exactly classic gaming oriented, but we talk about it so much that I feel I should address it on the show. This CNN.com link is a survey. Net file sharing doesn't hurt most musicians. And I'll read you the headline piece here. Most musicians and artists say the internet has helped them make more money from their work despite online file trading services that allow users to copy songs and other material for free, according to a study released Sunday. Interesting stuff here. Recording labels and movie studios have hired phalanxes of lawyers to pursue peer-to-peer networks like Kazaa and have sued thousands of individuals who distribute copyrighted material through such networks. But most of the artists surveyed by the nonprofit Pew Internet and American Life Project said online sharing did not concern them much. Artists were split on the merits of peer-to-peer networks with 47% saying they prevented artists from earning royalties for their work, and another 43% saying they helped promote and distribute their material. But 2/3 of those surveyed said file sharing posed little threat to them, and less than 1/3 of those surveyed said file sharing was a major threat to creative industry. Only 3% said that the internet hurt their ability to protect their creative works. And we've got a whole bunch more to that article that you can go in and read. No, I guess there's not that much. But I thought that was interesting. You know, we've been talking a lot about the concept of piracy. And, you know, the industries, every industry screams about how much money is lost in piracy. And yet, things like peer-to-peer file sharing, things like mod chips and things like that don't seem to be harming this billions and billions of dollar industries. You know, they shake one tree and say, well, the video game market's up 43% and we're making $150 billion a year in this market. But then turn around and say, oh, but you know, piracy is costing us a lot of cash. Well, make up your mind, folks. Is piracy hurting you? If you're making $150 billion, piracy's not hurting you. I mean, I know it's the right thing to do to say, please don't copy my crap. Or as the, are you all that? Well, I won't say anything about that. I don't know where Brian's going to mix that review. That's pretty funny, though. Hey, man, don't copy this. That ain't cool. I like that approach myself. Just tell me not to do it, and I won't do it. But, you know, when you look at the recording artist saying, you know, how much money they're making, and then you turn around and say, oh, we're losing so much cash. I don't know. It's hard for me to feel sympathetic. You know, when these people are driving, you know, Jags and, you know, have $2.7 million country homes, it's hard for me to really think about crying pain and suffering. The people who should be crying pain and suffering are Electronic Arts developers. That's who should be crying pain and suffering. Speaking of which, if I can dig up a link, they made a shirt. And this is actually on our forums if you want to search for it. I was going to put a link up here, and I still may. Somebody, an anonymous person went to Cafe Press, which, of course, no real friends of ours, so we don't like the quality of their work, but this is still pretty funny. You go to Cafe Press, and they've got a shirt that says something like, I worked for EA, and I didn't even get this crummy shirt. It's classic stuff. I'll try to get a link up there. Too funny, though. Too funny. Those are the people who should be pissed, are the Electronic Arts developers. And there's something else about Electronic Arts. We're not going to talk about that in this episode. This is a happy Christmas episode. I don't want to talk about how the world's going to fall apart pretty soon. That's for January's show. That's a New Year's show, which will probably be late because of me. So anyway, that's some interesting little news from CNN there. Now, if you have not already listened to the DTV review that I've done, you'll want to catch that out. And I'm going to give you a link here that shows some sites that have photos of the insides of the unit, some software stuff, hacking guides, all sorts of good stuff. So the fact that you can hack this thing should give you reason enough to be interested in the title. So we're going to post a link to that. There's some good stuff in here. These guys have, man, people are industrious. That's all I can say. What else do we got in here? Okay. Somebody who sent in this thing about a portable NES. And I was looking at this site, and apparently they've got a whole bunch. This is at gbax.com. And you've probably seen this if you're into the market, but there's some interesting things on here. And these are like portables or handheld devices. There's some interesting stuff in here. The one that got sent in was an NES link to some wild stuff in here. I'm sorry, I'm flipping through this site, and I just can't get over some of the crap that's in here. Here's the item that they were looking at, was the Game Theory Admiral, the portable NES. This handheld showed up in China last year, and after several requests, we decided to get some in stock. It's a portable NES with a backlit TFT screen. It's well made and good quality, quite rare, definitely a collector's item. Let's see, what has it got in here? TV out cables, that's interesting. Backlit screen. Now here's something that's interesting. It's only $39.99. Well, it's euro dollars. It's pounds, I think. In this case, that's not that bad. I mean, a backlit portable NES player for like $50-$60. Damn, if somebody gets one, let me know. I'd be curious. I mean, I'm no NES fan, but that's amazing. But there's some other stuff in here too. Some other handheld stuff, like there's a Game King in here. There's some of the 76-in-1s complete with light, gun, extra joystick, all that other crap. You know, stuff that's now illegal, according to Nintendo. The Neo Geo Color Pocket Color games are on here. You can still find those locally, though. They got some other stuff, too. They have a Dreamcast here. Of course, it's out of stock, which is a portable Dreamcast, a luggable Dreamcast that you can take around, including a screen. 129 pounds. That'll set you back, about $180, $190, something like that. It's kind of pricey. They got some other wacky stuff on here. It's worth just going through this site just to see some of the wacky crap that's floating around out there. Oddball portable consoles. That's what they call this page. Interesting. We'll give you a link. Yeah, I like this one. Another CNN.com special. Video games calm kids before surgery. Letting kids play video games on a Game Boy in the operating room before undergoing surgery can help them relax better than tranquilizers or holding mommy's hand, researchers said. This class, I got a picture of this kid playing. It looks like I can't tell. It looks like looks like an SP almost, but you can't tell from the angle. But it's classic. They're prepping this kid up for surgery, and they're playing this Game Boy. We find that the children are just so happy with the Game Boy, they actually do forget where they are. Now, there's something that's interesting, said Patel, an anesthesiologist at the University Hospital in Newark, who plans to present her findings Saturday at a medical conference. Patel, the findings could be helpful. Patel, looks like we have a mess up here. Patel said the findings could be helpful because many parents do not want tranquilizers given to their children. Other hospitals have long used teddy bears and games to distract children before surgery, but those techniques are generally employed in patient rooms, playrooms, and waiting areas, not in the OR. Interesting stuff. I think they're actually, this is funny, this is standard stuff. Somebody comes up with this, and like 5 minutes later, somebody like this comes up. A Boston company, Design Continuum, has begun testing a combination anesthesia mask and headset that would allow patients to play video games or listen to music while they're gassed. Oh, man. I'm sorry. That's funny to me. Shawnee Willis, whose 10-year-old daughter had a cyst removed at the Newark Hospital Tuesday, said the girl was nervous until she got a Game Boy. Then she relaxed and played with it until she was anesthetized. Anesthesia? Is that right? That's got to be right. It was like she put everything out of her mind. Interesting stuff. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in this article. Worth reading. I'll post a link. It's just too funny. You need to get gassed while you play video games. Okay. Now, I thought that I'd mentioned this before, but I keep getting sent links to it, so I'll mention it again. We're big fans, at least I am. I know Brian said nice things about it, of Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Grand Theft Auto 3. After Grand Theft Auto went 3D, it's one of those few things that actually, to me, does not work in 2D. I played the original Grand Theft Auto 1 and 2, and frankly, I could not play them. In 3D, I can get into these games. This is Grand Theft Tendo. All right, fair enough. Grand Theft Tendo is a new homebrew game for the original Nintendo Entertainment Center, NES. It's a tribute to Rockstar's games, Grand Theft Auto 3, running on an 8-bit, 256 by 240 resolution, 2-bit color by 2-bit palette, 1.79 megahertz system written completely in 6502 assembly language. Purely a project of my spare time, it has progressed very nicely. I've kept the development of it quiet until the very end of October 2004, in which Grand Theft Auto San Andreas and, more importantly, Grand Theft Auto Advance were released. After the release of Grand Theft Auto Advance, a top-down take on Liberty City, I decided there was no better time to show the world my efforts. It will still be a while before it's finished, but it's done enough that it has something to show for itself. There's some really interesting stuff in here. Aside from, okay, let's suppose that you hate Grand Theft Auto. There's some really interesting stuff in here. If you click on Design of the City, the effort, the level of effort this guy put in to rebuilding this city is pretty impressive. Again, I'm no fan of Nintendo. I'm no fan of the 2D version of Grand Theft Auto, but this guy deserves some recognition. There's also another thing that talks about the development tools. Dude, he's writing this in assembler. This is a real man programming language here. This ain't MFC or Blitz, people. This is the real deal. And if you look at some of the screenshots, damn, the guy did a good job. He really did. I'm impressed. That's all I'm going to say. I'm impressed. It takes a lot to impress me. So, Grand Theft Tendo. Definitely check out the site. I don't even know if there's a downloadable or not. I don't think so, but in any event, it's interesting stuff. I recommend you go and check that out. Good stuff. Guy deserves some kudos. Oh, and in the lighter side of the news, busted for hacking Xboxes. So much for it being legal. U.S. officials raid stores, arrest 2 in game piracy. Federal authorities raided 3 Washington, D.C. area video game stores and arrested 2 people for modifying video game consoles to play pirated video games. Raids at 3 Pandora's Cube stores in Virginia and Maryland were a joint effort of the U.S. Department of Justice, Computer Crimes Unit, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Maryland, and the Bureau of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Authorities arrested 2 store employees on charges of conspiracy to commit copyright infringement and conspiracy to traffic in a device that circumvents technology protection measures. Okay? I don't know if this makes it gray anymore, folks. It's illegal to mod your box. I don't care for what purpose you're doing it. Okay? Here's the real crux. This is why I say Xbox and not anybody else. Like other entertainment industries, the video game business has aggressively pursued pirates that it says accounts for billions of dollars in lost revenue annually. Yeah, dollars you would never have seen. That's not lost dollars. That's potential dollars. But because video games tend to have a large digital files, a large part of the industry's piracy problem stems from illegal hardware and illegal copying of game discs. Pandora's Cube sold $500 Super Xboxes. A video game console had been modified to hold large hard drives and play pirated games. The modified console, now this is how stupid are you? How stupid are you? I just want to repeat that one more time. The modified consoles, some holding 15 or more games already copied to the hard drive, were on open display in the stores. Morons! They were burning games onto the hard drive and equipping the hard drive with copying software so that the average consumer could just go ahead and copy the software themselves. Morons, 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 one and all. There you have it, folks. A very short but yet somehow efficient and effective version of Bits and Bytes for this Christmas 2004 edition of Retro Gaming Radio. We'll be back next month with even more great news and bits from around the world and around the internet, right here on Retro Gaming Radio. Now it's time to reveal another Easter egg on the Retro Gaming Radio DVD-ROM title. We've been through, 4 Easter eggs. We've got 4 of the 8 already gone. The year's going by fast, is it not? I've got a few more here for you. The next one you're going to find is 5 of 8. That will be found on the Alan Miller interview page. And if you look right above the back to menu, put your pointer in the 2 of back to menu, move your pointer up about an inch or so, and bickety boom, you will find yet another hidden Easter egg. This time it's the dance rendition, Brian's, Kid Hype Smith's dance rendition of He's My Guy, the song that appeared on Dragon's Lair 3D in the closing credits. Pretty good stuff. So that is your Easter egg tip for this show. We will have another Easter egg revealed on the next episode. The good folks over at Digital Leisure, despite the fact that they just released Dragon's Lair 3, which we talked about in another episode, what the hell was that? Anyway, they sent me over another little title for us to look at. It's something a little derivative from the normal Dragon's Lair 2, Dragon's Lair 20th Anniversary, Dragon's Lair DVD-ROM, Dragon's Lair DVD Video, Dragon's Lair Space Ace Combo Deluxe Pack. It's actually something completely that has nothing to do with Don Bluth or Dragon's Lair Space Ace. So, now that I've got your attention, there has been an interesting trend these days to create, how should we put this to be politically correct and all, urbanized video games. It seems that there is a little wigga in all of us because apparently every publisher, every developer, including the esteemed Electronic Arts, seem to want to urbanize everything. The Urbs, NBA Hoops with the Z at the end, right? All of these are, I would almost go so far as to say that they border on racist, folks. Let's not lie to ourselves here. Okay? You can say, well, that's black representation in video games. No, it's not. I happen to have a black man on staff here, okay? You know what I'm saying? And the black man says this borders on racism. Okay. Well, Are You All That, as you can imagine, just by the title alone, furthers this model of every single game has to have an urban slant. Now, I'm not exactly sure how that happened. All of a sudden, I turned around and everything has an urban slant to it. And I'm not sure exactly how that works out. But Are You All That is a DVD video title from Digital Leisure. Their little tagline is, "Trivia has never been so hip." Yeah. Okay. The fact that the host's name is Dr. Know-It-All Brown with an E at the end of Brown. I'm looking at the cover here, and you got a black man with a gold tooth, sunglasses, slicked back hair, got a little bling going on here, and he's wearing like a pimp outfit, sans the hat. Yeah. And on the back, you've got two guys that look like the same guys that broke into your neighbor's house last year on the back, so that looks good. Yeah, overall, you look at this thing and go, how do you get away with stuff like this today? Right? Now, I'm not saying, this is just the packaging and presentation, folks. Okay? It also has, and I'd have to go back and watch the video at the beginning again, but our Dr. Know-It-All Brown becomes a trivia host as he's doing janitorial work in an auditorium. I don't make this stuff up, folks. I just bring it in front of you and let you decide. Okay, let's get off the urbanized, this is halfway racist packaging and game theme and elements. One more thing. The cutscenes between the questions, we're going to get to that, all are urbanized. Yeah, you ain't got no bang, stuff like that. We'll talk about that later. Slang-infused style. Okay, wait, maybe I need to read the back of this so you guys can get this. It's a trivia party. All you need is a DVD player, a remote control. Challenge your crew, can't believe it doesn't say posse, with 6 categories of factoids, tidbits, nostalgia, and lots of pop culture. The irreverent, who the hell uses the word irreverent? Ever-hip master of ceremonies, Dr. Know-It-All Brown keeps score. In parentheses, so you don't have to. Last time I heard that in parentheses was Scrubbing Bubbles. We work hard so you don't have to. Sorry, just made that weird connection. In his own charismatic slang-infused style, the Doctor will diss, in quotes of course, or give props to players as he sees fit. I'm at a loss of words. Retro graphics and random questions make every game a unique experience. It's serious, silly, and always entertaining. Visit us at areyouallthat.com. Interactive features include 1 to 4 players or teams, auto-scoring. Auto-scoring is a bullet point. Character selection. Yeah, you get to have characters like Axe. I'm not making it up. Variable game lengths, bonus category choice. Over-the-top cool party fun for the whole gang. This is a Canadian product, by the way, folks. This did not come out of the hood. Okay, so now that we've had a little bit of fun at the expense of theming this after the ghetto, or the perceived Canadian ghetto, how about that? Let's talk about the title. First of all, this is a DVD video, which means it's designed to be put into a video player. This includes set-top boxes like your Toshiba, your Philips, your Kenwood set-top box, your PlayStation 2 or Xbox. Sorry, no GameCube for you. As well as, of course, your computer PC DVD-ROM drive. Now let's talk about that. The first thing I put this in was one of my set-top boxes. This game was not designed to be played in a set-top box, despite the fact that it says that it can be. The lag time and the seek time on this disc are unbelievably high. Now, first of all, I did it on my special Super Elite Philips DVD player, which, plays DivX and Xvids, and basically, if I, pressed my ass onto a blank CD, I could put it in there and I'd see it on the screen. Yeah, that's how elite my Philips is. Now, the Philips had horrible lag time. I mean, you're sitting there like, did the disc lock up? Is there something wrong? Is there a scratch on the disc? And then it would come up. And it's like, okay, well, maybe it's just the Philips. So I put it in the nice high-end Kenwood. Well, the high-end Kenwood was just as bad in terms of wait time between screens. It's like, damn, this is like playing Dragon's Lair in the arcade, right? So I said, okay, well, let's throw it in the PlayStation 2. So I threw it in the PlayStation 2, and it's like, okay, we didn't really do any testing or quality control on DVD set-top boxes. We have a bank of PlayStations or probably Xboxes in the studio where they were throwing this game in and testing nightly builds. Okay, so I understand now. At the very minimum, play this on a game console. Do not play this on a set-top box. And finally, I thought to myself, if the PlayStation 2's got good seek time on this, I'm betting the PC totally stomps ass. So I took it and I threw it in my PC DVD-ROM drive. And as I suspected, the game is now very, very playable. So let's talk about the game, now that I've done my verbal abuse for 7 minutes and 24 seconds. The game is a straight-up trivia game. You pick the number of players. You get to choose from urbanized characters. And you pick a category as your bonus category. In other words, every time a question comes up in that category, you can make 2 points or lose 2 points based on whether or not you know the answer. The host will bore the tears out of you with narrative in between questions, telling you what the category is, telling you how well you did, whether you got it right or wrong. And, of course, it reminds me a lot of You Don't Know Jack. The guy always has a commentary after every question. Sometimes that's neat, and sometimes you just want to get to the next question because you didn't know the answer to that, right? So the question will come up. They'll tell you what player's up, and, of course, each one of these has its own video clip. At least they were nice enough to make different clips. So if you get it wrong, you don't hear, you're wrong, over and over again. You get to hear some urbanized slang because it's hip. So at least they gave you a little bit of variance there. So you get the question, you answer it right, you get a point. You answer it wrong, you don't get a point. If you get a bonus question, it's about your category, and you get it right, you get 2 points. If you get it wrong, you get 2 points taken away from you. Okay. You can choose some various lengths in terms of, in terms of how long you play, things like that. And so what about the questions? How does the question and answer thing work? You get a question, the guy reads it to you. You get 3 possible answers you can choose from. So you got 33% chance of getting it right. You pick you pick the answer, and then he comes back and tells you whether you did it right or wrong. And he does come back and give you the right answer, so you know for next time. The game features 6 different categories and has apparently 1,500 questions. That guy's probably hoarse at the end of the day from all the talking he does, our Dr. Know-It-All Brown. So there's 1,500 questions. Now, I played, 2 or 3 games of it. I did not get any repeats, so that's pretty good. Whatever randomization tool they use for this, or however they got away with doing that, seems to work out okay. Now, what about the questions? Now, when I look at this packaging, I'm thinking I'm going to be asked, which basketball player in the NBA scored the most 3-point free throws. That's kind of what I was expecting. Do not be fooled by this cover. These are not easy ghetto trivia questions, folks. They are complicated questions. This is not a game for children. The only one that I got easily was and then, of course, they fluffed this question up with, a little hyperbole, which, of course, falls right into my alley because I love hyperbole. But, basically, who sang the song Maggie May, right? And they give you a couple of possibilities. Bryan Adams, Rod Stewart, of course, is the right answer. So I got that one. But, they really throw some unbelievable questions at you. Things like in the news, you expect to hear some modern stuff. In 1918, So these will challenge your head. There's stuff in here. Maybe it's because I don't have that urban streak. Maybe these are urban questions. I don't think so, though. Most of these things are pretty tough. So don't go in here thinking, well, this is just a goofy-ass kids trivia game. It's not. There's some good questions in here, and that's probably the strongest suit of the game. Of course, you will learn a little something as you play, as it were. So that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. So it gets high points in terms of the trivia difficulty. Perhaps maybe we should have had a difficulty level for those of us who are not blessed with 200 years of Aztec history under our belts, perhaps we could have played the game a little better too. Now, this might work very well in a team environment where you have a couple of disparate people that have different knowledge in different areas getting together to play trivia. Is the game fun? That's the first thing we've got to ask. It's a lot more fun on a PC when you don't have to wait so long in between screens. If you played this on a set-top box, after the first 2 or 3 questions, it'd be back in the box and you'd never play it again. Trust me on this one. However, playing it on the PC, or like your white box, that you got hooked up to the TV because it rules, or on a console, I think the game has some appeal. Definitely, especially if you're into trivia games. Unfortunately, the parts that make this game unlikable are the long transitions between questions. And of course, that's fluff. That's how you get 1,500 questions to last you forever. You just don't ask them as fast, right? So there's a method to the madness. But it does get in the way, and it does detract from what otherwise would have been a solid trivia game. The other problem, of course, with that is, this whole urbanized thing. If they ain't making it for the black people, folks, who are they making it for? If I as a white guy feel feel the game is half borders on racism, what's the black guy got to think? So who's the game for? I've never quite understood that. NBA hoops, who's that for? Right? I don't know. Maybe somebody that works for a large company that has a marketing department can explain this concept to Brian and myself, because we're a little puzzled on the whole urbanization thing. But anyway, the title again is Are You All That? And it's even got a catchy little AYAT or something like that as their little nickname. Are you ready for some AYAT gaming? I don't make this stuff up, folks. I just bring it to you as I see it. Are You All That? It's from Digital Leisure. Not sure what it clocks in retail-wise. I don't remember. Let's see if it's on here. Nope. It's not on here. It was made by a company called DVDI. Well, haven't heard of them, but I'm sure we'll see something else. 1 to 4 players, age 13 and up. Hopefully, 13-year-old with the IQ the same as the weight of an elephant, perhaps, maybe can play this. But anyway, check it out. If you're into trivia games and you're a trivia game buff, and we've had so many trivia games in the past that have been fun to play. A lot of classic video game trivia games, which is amazingly enough. If you go looking, there's a lot of those. And this kind of gets that same feeling. It's got that kind of retro grunge look to it. But unfortunately, they take the retro grunge and try to marry it with the urbanization thing, and I'm not sure that quite works out. But it's worth checking out. Go check out the website. Go read a little bit more about it. See if it's really what you're looking for before you plunk down your cash. Otherwise, an interesting title, interesting concept, interesting delivery medium. And again, you're going to want to play this on your PC or on your PlayStation 2 / Xbox. And that's the only real way that it's playable. That's going to close up this review for Are You All That? From Digital Leisure. Everybody likes reviews, so I'm going to do another one. I'm going to have 2 reviews this time around for the Christmas show, and then another shareware game. This is something that when I first saw it delivered to my inbox from the company that makes it, I was looking and going, oh no, please, no, not a brick game, not another brick game, no. How many brick games do we need? How many Arkanoids do we need? But I thought, well, let's at least take a look. So I jumped onto the website and checked out the screenshots, and it was apparent to me this was not a standard Break the Bricks game. I was intrigued. This actually, let me read to you what I'm hoping this is right. Nurium, Nurium.com. Nurium Games, this is what the BreakQuest website says that this game is. If you like to break bricks, you'll love to crunch everything else. New concept breakout to blow your socks off. Enjoy 100 fun, action-packed levels, vibrant graphics, and cool sound. No place for boredom. In addition to the energizing gameplay, the game boasts a superior physics concept and advanced collision system. Now let me read on here. Enjoy 100 unique scenes, all of them with their own colorful designs, crystal clear sound, and elements behavior. Feel the full physics engine with advanced collisions. This allows for a completely new game experience in a freely shaped world and physically responding environment. 16 million color, spectacular, ultra smooth animated graphics, right, whatever. Flow with the music of a professional gaming music group, Maniacs of Noise. extended soundtrack. Don't know what that is. See the power of advanced particle system designed to create a wide range of sparkling visual effects. 9 different weapons. Discover new, never-seen before weapons and power-ups and power-downs. Original, powerful gameplay. Blah, blah, blah. Choose from 10 different ships with different functionality to play as your guy. It's got a story mode. Save the world. Blah, blah, blah. Highly configurable. Set up the ball speed parameters, scene configuration, bumper sizes, etc. Guaranteed fun for you, first minute to last minute, etc., etc. Full price, $19.99. Now, I'll tell you what. Shareware games moving to the $19 price point kind of freaked me out. You know, at $9.95, most shareware is a pretty decent deal. At $12.95, it's still a pretty much impulse buy. Even $14.95, I was kind of going, okay, it's still 15. It's under 15 bucks. But now that it's reaching, you know, the 20 spot area, now you got to start delivering. Now, how does BreakQuest deliver? Well, first of all, when you fire this guy up, you got 2 different modes. You can play the Quest mode, or you can play the arcade mode. Now, the arcade mode doesn't get opened or unlocked until you play and get, I think, 5 keys. You'll know what we're talking about later, like 5 keys from the Quest mode. So you got to play the Quest mode, which is, you know, kind of get you in the mood, you know, because the arcade stuff's insane. I mean, the arcade stuff is truly insane. So I started playing the Quest mode. First of all, the physics system in here is really good. I imagine he probably bought the physics system. You know, I don't know anybody who writes physics like that still, you know, has an imagination, because you don't write physics like this. So you probably got it from somebody, but that's okay. It works out. You've got some of the standard stuff, big ball, small ball. You can change the shape of the bumper that bumps the ball on your ship. You got the standard fireball. You've got all these, and they come down in little capsule forms. They look like little drugs, little hits of ecstasy or something coming down. You can get a Sputnik, which is like an orbiting little minion guy that floats around your ball and knocks out bricks along with the ball. Pretty cool, right? The standard stuff, glue, where you can, you know, catch the ball and hold it. All sorts of little stuff. And you can go to their site and see a list of all the stuff that's out there that's in here for this guy. You can actually change the area of your ship that bounces the ball back. It can be curved. It could be toothed. It could be all sorts of different weird things. And that affects, of course, how the ball bounces around. So basically, you know, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, okay, it's still Breakout, so we've got a couple new missions and a couple little gimmicks. What makes this cool? Well, in a standard Breakout game, right, you pretty much have bricks, or even irregularly shaped bricks, but they're still bricks. They're still clumped together. They're still bricks, right? And you bounce off of them, you break the brick. Sometimes something comes out. You pick up the something that comes out sometimes, and you get something. They did some weird stuff in here. Every screen is actually unique in the way that it looks. Some screens are made up of traditional type bricks. Some of them are made up of like res-like vector shapes. Some of them are made up of pulsating orbs. Some of them are made up of little yin-yangs. Some of them are completely irregular. Some of them are a bowling alley, a simulated bowling alley where you basically use the ball to knock down the pins. It's not Breakout anymore. They've taken the concept of batting a ball around the screen into something different. And what really makes this sort of thing shine is that you get some really wacky stuff in here. Like one thing, you can actually get a guided missile. Now tell me how creepy this is. The missile is like a torpedo. It's like a Mark 48 torpedo on a submarine. It's got like a guide wire. And this guide wire connects between your ship and this missile, and you can control the missile breaking up whatever's on the screen. Some games require that you make rows like Tetris, right? That you got to color the blocks in the right order. It's kind of like, and Brian put this the right way, it's kind of like Breakout meets Wario. It's almost like each level is almost a mini game. Because while the concept of batting a ball around is the same, the objectives are not necessarily the same. And some of these things are seriously whacked out. I mean, you just gotta look at some of the screenshots. Go to the site. One of them's got a Space Invaders game where the Space Invaders, they look like Space Invaders, and they walk up and down the screen. You know, they walk back and forth across the screen, and they shoot at you, and you try to hit them with the ball. It's wacky. I mean, there's a Star Castle one, you know, an homage to Star Castle. Now they tie these things all together with some, you know, kind of kooky storyline. Fortunately, they let you skip all that stuff. Personally, I would have liked to have been able to just, you know, I don't care about the story, just let me play the next level. As you play each level, it unlocks the next level, and then you can go back and revisit those screens anytime you feel like it. You have to do them in order, though. You can't just pick the hardest screen and play. You have to go sequentially through the different levels in quest mode. Now, after you play like a boss level, a key will drop out, and as you collect these keys, it will unlock the arcade mode. And the arcade mode is just unbelievable. Everything flies at you at once. It's like a nightmare waiting to happen. Cool stuff. I imagine you can go in and change that stuff to slow it down a little bit. But when I was thrown into the foray, it's like, damn, good stuff. Now you get 100 levels of this quest stuff, which is really wacky. I mean, that's a lot of levels and a lot of work. It did win the Arkanoid Game of the Year from an independent gaming company that, you know, basically rewards games that fit into certain types of old school games like Arkanoid or artillery games or whatever. So it won the award this year. No brainer. I mean, this is one wacky ass game. The audio is amazing. It's totally immersive. The music is great. The audio is funky. The screens are pulsating with crap. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Rez. A lot of the levels and a lot of the feel of the game remind me of this weird Rez breakout game. Don't take my word for it, though. They have a trial. You can download the demo. $20 will net you the full version. Nurium was nice enough to hook us up with a key so we could play some of the other levels and play some of the other stuff. Good stuff. There are times when you can launch multiple balls. Oh, I know one thing that really stood out, and I kept meaning to mention it. I keep forgetting. They have, every level you get a certain amount of gravity pull. It's like a little bar, a little meter bar, like a little gas tank bar at the top that shows how much gravity you have left. Now, how does this work out? If you hold down the right mouse button, it will start pulling the ball towards you. It's got this gravitational pull on the ball. And you're going, well, that sounds kind of goofy. Well, it does sound kind of goofy, and it sounds kind of gimmicky, but it's really useful in some of the levels when you need to put the ball in a certain spot. Let's say the ball travels up across the top from left to right, and there's something you have to hit inside something else, but you only hit it from the top. Well, you could constantly hit the thing back and forth, right, and hope to God that eventually it gets where it needs to be, or you can wait for the ball's arc and trajectory to line up to where when you hold down the gravity button, it pulls the ball into that spot. Again, it sounds simple, sounds gimmicky, but I can't imagine playing Breakout now where I can't pull the ball a little bit each level to kind of control it a little bit. It's neat stuff. You know, like I said, I was really apprehensive. You know, I'm pretty much Breakout out. You know, I'm pretty much done with it. But I've played a good number of levels of this. I've had a really good time with it. And it's nice around Christmas time to have a surprise where there's a nice game that we can enjoy. And for this show, I'm going to recommend that you guys check out this BreakQuest. Good stuff. Nuriumgames.com or Nurium.com. Nurium.com. We'll have a link for you. The game is BreakQuest. They got a free demo, $20 to get it. Good stuff. I highly recommend you check it out, or you'll be truly missing out on some really cool ideas, some innovation for a change. Enjoy it now. Okay, thanks. Quite possibly one of the best gifts that a retro gamer can receive this year comes in a little plastic triangle. I am, of course, talking about the Commodore 64 DTV, or Direct to TV, 30 games in one joystick. Now, before you get all freaked out, you're going to say, oh no, another all-in-one joystick. Keep it. I'll just skip ahead and listen to the other stuff on the show. Before you skip ahead, these sort of TV games are notoriously known for being, what's the politically correct word to say? Suck. Yes, these games have sucked. If you have picked up a Jax controller and said, That's kind of like Miss Pac-Man, but why does it sound funny? Why are the graphics wrong? Why doesn't it play right? Well, before we move on to why the Commodore DTV 30-in-1 is different than everybody else, let me explain to what everybody else is. Everybody else uses a weird simulated rewrite of software. If you have the original Atari 10-in-1 controller, if you have, say, one of these other JAX controllers, what you're playing is a recreation or a simulation of the original game. And unfortunately, while they managed to get the graphics somewhat close, for those of you who know the games very well understand that they're not close, while they managed to get these games close, the sound is usually really bad. The speed is really bad. These games are recreations of their original, former, much better selves. Now, about a year and a half ago, I heard about this Commodore all-in-one controller coming. I knew that this was in the pipe, but I wasn't going to say anything because I was afraid one of these goofy-ass companies like JAX Pacific was going to get their hands on this thing, and they would destroy what is probably the best part of my childhood, owning a Commodore 64 computer. Now, those of you who were back in the commie days like us knows that the Commodore 64 had some of the absolute best titles on it. These titles range anywhere from role-playing to strategy to action, shoot-em-ups. You name it, the Commodore 64 had a title that matches what you're looking for. The Commodore 64 had so many memorable titles. If you say something like Archon, or if you say something like Impossible Mission, Temple of Abshai, if you say any of these titles, they're instantly recognizable by almost anyone. Anyone who grew up in that generation. If I say Jumpman, you know what I'm talking about. So when I heard about the Commodore 30-in-1, I could not get my hopes up. I simply had to say, okay, I'm going to let it come. I'm going to look at it. I'm going to tear its ass apart on the show if they mess it up because they're getting a little too close to home. I don't care if they piss poorly emulate Pac-Man. But you're touching the 64 now. The only thing you could do worse is touch the Amiga. Commodore 64 was the baby. And a lot of you understand what I'm talking about because the Commodore 64 was your baby. It was a huge part of your life. There's a quirkiness about the Commodore 64. There are always, if you go from one PC to another, right, there's no soul, there's no difference. But if you went to, from a Commodore 64 to an Atari or something like that, you'll know that there are signature things about the old-fashioned computers. The Commodore 64 had the SID chip. And if you've heard SID music or SID noise or SID sound or SID sound effects, you know that it's something that simply is unique. You will hear it and you will instantly realize that it's Commodore 64 music. There are visual indicators like color bars in the border of the screen. That's a trademark Commodore 64 thing. These are all things that you can tell. These are things that cannot be simulated. They have to be emulated. A 1-pixel tear on the screen because of the way that they hardwired the interrupt. No one's going to recreate something like that. They're going to recreate the game as to look and play the best they can without having to work around the technological hoopla that the original Commodore people had to deal with, these developers had to deal with. A lot of times when you split the screen on a Commodore 64, there was that 1-pixel thin border at the top or bottom of one of the screens that would change all these weird colors. And you're always like, well, that's part of the game. That's part of being a Commodore 64. So knowing all of this information and being, an 8-9 year Commodore veteran myself, I knew what I was looking for when I cracked open the seal of the Commodore DTV 30-in-1. The first thing I did is I watched the commercial on QVC. A lot of us watched that commercial when it first came out. But I actually tuned in the Friday that they started selling and watched them play these games on a big TV. And it's like, man, the sound's right and the video's right, but you can't tell until you got one. So I went ahead and ordered a 2-pack. They come in single or 2-packs. You can't hook them together or anything, but you get a good discount if you buy 2 of them. So I bought one for myself, one for Brian. And so The first thing I did, well, let's talk about the packaging first. I got it in the mail. First of all, it took a little longer than I expected. I had to order from QVC. Okay, let's talk about that. Got things way out of order here. QVC, which is that TV shopping channel, owns the exclusive rights to this Commodore 64 controller, at least till the end of the year. Now, I don't know if it's the end of this year or the end of the year when they started selling it, right? So QVC is where you're going to get one of these things. You're not going to find them in stores. You're not going to find them at GameStop, at least not yet. There were 250,000 of these guys knocked off the assembly line, and QVC has them all. That's not necessarily a bad thing. They're going for $30 a hit right now, which is a little more pricey than, say, the $20 Pac-Man controller. But you're going to find out soon that it's worth it. So I placed my order. Actually, I got to place it Thursday night at midnight. I just happened to be up at that time. Dumbass. It was Thanksgiving night, of course. And so I placed my order at midnight. And then Friday, I was over at a friend's house, and he flipped by QVC, and I actually saw the ad going on. It was kind of creepy that those sort of things fall into alignment. Creepy. What are the chances of him flipping by QVC and me seeing the commercial? Anyway, so we watched it for a few minutes, and it's like, wow, that looks dead on. So, of course, now I am anxiously awaiting to get this guy in the mail. After, like, everybody in town had one before me, which I was pissed, they finally arrived. And they come in this cool little triangular package. The joystick looks like an old non-branded joystick. It doesn't look like an Epix joystick. It doesn't look like a TAC-2. It doesn't look like a Wicco. It doesn't look like anything you've seen before. But you can tell, you can see it right in the package. And the first thing you'll notice right off the bat, there are 2 buttons, right and left. And there are 4 buttons, well, technically 5 if you count the reset button, that adorn the front of the unit. So I was looking at it. The packaging here, which I'll be able to provide a link. I don't know if they have a link of the packaging on QVC or not. Maybe I'll scan it. But basically, they show you some games on the back. I'm going to read you the back of it here. Actually, there's nothing to read. They just give you a list of the games, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But there are pictures of Impossible Mission, Summer Games, Winter Games, Pit Stop 2, and Jumpman Jr., and then it says plus 25 more. Now, this is released by a company called Mammoth Toys. And if you want to see an example of the absolute worst website ever made, exported from Microsoft Office, doesn't work on anything but IE, probably IE6, then you need to check out Mammoth Toys' website because it is truly horrid. And if anybody at Mammoth Toys happens to be listening, I work cheap, okay? Find somebody that works cheap, fix that website. I mean, I was embarrassed to be there. But anyway, it has, a little, the bottom of it shows, Commodore 64. It's got the Commodore logo, 30-in-1. This is an authorized product. They did license everything they needed from Tulip, who now owns the Commodore 64. So this is all an official package, folks. There's real Commodore logos. The whole thing is legit. Nothing grayware about this. QVC wouldn't be carrying it otherwise. So I cracked this guy open, and just like every other controller, of its nature, of its type, it requires 4 AA batteries. So before I even put the instruction book in, all I wanted to do was just plug it in and play it. I mean, that's the nature of these things, right? I threw the batteries in, I plugged it into the TV, I flipped it on, and what am I greeted by but the Commodore 64 boot screen, when you turn it on, the ready prompt was just sitting there. And a moment later, it types in for you, load, quote, star, quote, comma 8, comma 1, just like the old school days. It loads something, it hits run, and a menu pops up. And the menu is written in, obviously, Commodore 64, code. I mean, it's a Commodore 64 demo. It's got everything that you would expect to see. The colors, the scroller on the bottom, obviously written by somebody old school. The joystick acts as, of course, as the controller to control the menu. You can slide up and down. The menu scrolls. I think it's got like 10 items per page on the menu, so you can scroll down and choose the game. All right, let's talk about the games. Okay, this is the important part to most people. What's in the pack? Well, first, 30-in-1 is a little irresponsible on the part of Mammoth Toys because, let's be honest, there's not 30 games in here. Let me tell you what is in here. These are the real games that are in here. Championship Wrestling, Cyberdyne Warrior, Cybernoid and Cybernoid 2, each of their own game. Eliminator, Exelon, Firelord, Gateway to Abshai, thank God, Impossible Mission 2, Jumpman Jr., Paradroid, Pit Stop 2, Ranorama, Silicon Warrior, Speedball, Summer Games, Supercycle, Sword of Fargle, Tower Toppler, Uridium, what a bonus, I didn't even know that was on there, Winter Games, and World Karate Champion, and Zanaps. Those are the actual full-bore titles that are on here. Now, to fluff out the 30 in one part, we've got Bull Riding, which was taken from World Games. We've got Flying Disc, which was taken from either World Games or California Games. We've got Sumo, which was taken from World Games. Surfing, which was taken from California Games. As well as a World Karate Champion B, which is maybe almost like a different disc version of World Karate Champion. So, looking at this list, we're talking about 25 real games, 5 mini games, and if you're listening close on the list, maybe you have it in front of you by now, there are 10 must-have games on here. The ones that sell this controller. So, gritting my teeth, holding my breath, hoping for the best, I ran down to Impossible Mission. Why was this my first choice? Impossible Mission was not my favorite game, but it's a game that really stretches the capabilities of the 64 and would be the one that I would think that they would have the most trouble recreating the sound from because of all the digital speech. So I figured if I'm going to see if the sound model is accurate on this guy, Impossible Mission should be the thing to give it away. So down to Impossible Mission, I hit it, I get the Impossible Mission boot screen, which you would normally see if you were booting from disk. And a half a second later, no, this is not accurate load time, folks. It's click, 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 and you're done. Into Impossible Mission I was, and lo and behold, another visitor. Stay a while. It's perfect. Not even the wrong pitch. The audio is perfect. So I run around a little bit, I do the flip-flops, I get blasted by the robots, I do everything in Impossible Mission. Everything is silky smooth. It's exactly the way I remember it. The sounds are identical. Even dropping the little bastard into the hole to hear him scream was accurate. Now I was optimistic. Now this is before I understood the construction of this unit. This is me just pulling it out of the box and plugging it in, right? So let's look at some of the other titles. The other titles, of course, that are real high profile, Jumpman Jr. Through Jumpman Jr. in. Now, the first thing I noticed about Jumpman Jr. is you normally need a keyboard, right? For you to type in the number of players and what speed you want to run at. Well, the game has been slightly altered to allow you to move the joystick to choose 1, 2, 4, 8 players, right? So you don't need the keyboard to do the input. So that's kind of cool. They didn't monkey with the actual game, just the interface to get you to play the game. Now, normally that would take a ding. But because the game is so perfect and they didn't monkey with it, I'm going to let them off. Technically, the game has been altered. But if you look at this, if you look at these folks, these games had to have been altered to some extent. You know, Impossible Mission was disc-based. Jumpman Jr. was based off a cartridge. You know, so they had to monkey with at least the formatting of the code to plug it into this unit. But, as I said before, the timing is accurate, the sound is accurate, and the graphics are accurate. So you can let them buy changing the interface a little bit to suit the controller as long as they don't monkey with the game. So after playing about 7 levels of Jumpman Jr., I decided to check out some of the other titles. One of the other big titles that I grew up with that I logged way the hell too many hours in is Gateway to Abshai. Gateway to Abshai is sort of the early man's Diablo 2, you know? You walk around, you uncover rooms. Inside the rooms can be monsters. You pick up weapons, armor, arrows, gold. You have to search for pit traps. You have to search for secret doors. It was sort of an action RPG. It was one of the first that I can ever remember that are memorable. You know, if you look at Gateway to Abshai, it still holds up pretty good. You know, it was looking good. Now, those of you who remember Gateway to Abshai remember some weird sounds going on in that game. Sometimes you would hear faint echoes of sound effects that shouldn't be there. Those are in here. Even though they shouldn't be, they're here. Those of you who remember that as you walk around the maze and the screen smooth scrolls, right? There's like a 1 pixel bar between the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen where the action happens. There's like a 1 pixel border that vanishes and reappears as you scroll. That's there. It's actually there. So after playing a couple of other titles on here that I remember so well that there's no way I could be wrong, such as Winter Games. What else did I remember really, really well? Winter Games, Uridium. Let's see, what else did I remember really well? Those are the real top level ones. Those are the ones that there's no possible way that I could make a mistake in how accurate they are. But I flipped through some of the other titles too, just to kind of, make sure. This is great stuff. So I'm going, this is truly amazing. This is totally accurate. This sets the bar for every other handheld TV game to ever come out. So I did a little bit of research. I started skimming the net to see if anybody else had any input on this. Well, do you remember Jerry Ellsworth? We had her on the show last year. She was the one making the Commodore 1, the kind of hybrid super whammadine Commodore product. It was like a Commodore 64, but based off modern hardware. Well, it turns out that Jerry is responsible for this hardware. She built it. And what they did, which is truly amazing, is they took all the components of the Commodore 64, the 6502, the SID chip, the VIC-2. They took all those chips and miniaturized it into a single chip. So you now have a Commodore 64 on a single chip. And it's real. It's real. Please. Sorry, if you're a Howard Stern fan, you'll get that. But it's actually real. It's a real Commodore 64. It's miniaturized, but it's a real Commodore 64. If you go searching around, I'll put some links up. There are links that will show you how to open this unit up and solder a port onto it that will let you plug in a disk drive. Yeah. You can plug a 1541 disk drive into a modified version of this joystick. You can solder on a keyboard onto this 30-in-1 TV game controller. You can actually boot disk images. You can boot the disks on this unit. This is a real Commodore 64 inside this joystick. It's amazing to see what people have done and modified to this thing. You can apparently even load games in over the top of the ones that are already there. So you transfer them onto there, unplug your disk drive, and your joystick is now like a portable Commodore 64. I'm not going to try any of this stuff, folks. But suffice to say that it's the real deal. Now, I put in some shoddy batteries when I first got it. I couldn't find any good batteries. And after playing for a couple hours, of course, the batteries started to go dead. Right in the middle of playing, I think, Jumpman, the screen froze. And it's like, what the hell is this? So I hit the reset button, and if you've ever popped a CIA chip, or if you've ever blown up your Commodore 64 and you turned it on and it just sat there with the blue screen with random ASCII characters all over it, that's what happened. The 64 crashed because the power was being interrupted. It's like, whoa. So I turned it off and turned it back on again, and the machine comes up like it's dead. It's like a Commodore 64 with a bad power supply, or a Commodore 64 with a bad CIA chip. This is the real deal. This is a real Commodore 64 in here. So now I was really interested in playing. I went and played Summer Games. Played the crap out of that. I went and played all these other games, a lot of them which I never played before. I didn't know they made Speedball on the Commodore 64. And damn, it's very playable. Nice work, guys. Nice work. Now, along with that, you're probably asking yourself, okay, what about these phantom buttons on the front? Many games, like Gateway to Abshire, required the use of function keys. Change weapons, change, different spells, whatever. There are many games that require something a little more than the joystick, the space bar, for example. Function keys are the big one. What they've done is they've managed to reduce the key sets from every game. They didn't take any out. But if you were to hit, say, F7 on Gateway to Abshire, you'd now hit button 4 on the joystick. And this all comes in the documentation, folks. They give you like a 5-panel page fold-out thing that tells you, how to do everything. What the buttons are remapped to. Chances are you're not going to need them. I figured it out. There's only 4 buttons, folks. This controller still, even with 6 buttons, has less buttons than any modern console. You're still good to go. There are times when it will use the right button and as well as the left one, so they're not interchangeable. So it's not just like a righty and lefty controller thing, but I've seen some games, I'm trying to think of one in particular, I think it was Gateway, that if you push the right button, it automatically puts you back into fight mode. So they did remap some stuff around here, folks. So probably ran out of buttons on the bottom. But overall, this is it. I mean, if you've been waiting for the epitome of the perfect TV controller, one that's 100% accurate, one that has the games that you remember and love, one that you're not afraid to show your friends, this is it. Now, what about the joystick itself? Now, I know when I first started playing with it, it was like, there's something wrong with my joystick. I think it's broken. I told Brian on Instant Messenger, I said, dude, I think the joystick's broken. I hope yours isn't broken. If any of you remember using the TAC-2s, a lot of the original controllers, like for the Atari, the original Commodore controllers, right, they have a really big throw because they use they don't use micro switches. They use those little, I don't know what the technical term is. I'm sure one of the listeners will write in. They use those little clicky pads where you got to push the joystick so far to hit that pad and then push the pad down to make contact. Well, if you ever had a TAC-2, the TAC-2s have very little throw. In fact, there's almost no throw because they use really tightly coupled micro-type contact switches, right? So you move it like a scant, tiny little amount and you make contact. Well, it's been so long since I've played with one of these. I loved the TAC-2. I loved that sort of responsiveness because you weren't moving the joystick 3 inches to go from being full bore forward to full bore back. So it took me a while to get used to this guy because it feels like a TAC-2 controller. The switches are very tight. And once you get used to it, of course, it's not broken. But that's something that you'll have to contend with. If you're used to slamming around that Atari joystick and gut-wrenching it, this does not play the same. Now, I'm sure you could probably wire something else up to it. I mean, hell, they wired a disk drive and a keyboard to it. Why not? But this unit, the joystick feels exactly like I remember the TAC-2, and I loved that. So that was a bonus for me, may not be a bonus for you, depending on what you grew up with on the 64. Very durable construction. It's a little bit heavier, it feels like, than most of the other all-in-one games, but then again, it does have 4 AA's in it. What do you want? It's got a nice long cord, which is nice. The Commodore was not a stereo unit, so it's got a video and 1 audio out. Not a big deal. So there's nothing cut off there. It was actually a mono machine, so that's okay. The unit, the battery life, I have put in fresh energizers after I blew out these other batteries. I actually put in rechargeables because that's what I had. And they just come out of the camera. So I figured the power draw would be low. I figured I'd get away with it for a while. As soon as I put in fresh alkalines, of course, the boot up problem went away. And I haven't changed the batteries out since. So you get some good battery life in here. It seems to work out. Now, apparently, there are hidden Easter eggs inside this game. If you wiggle the joystick back and forth, right and left, while you're sitting on a menu item, the blinking selecting the item, the blink of the item that's showing which one's selected, gets faster and faster and faster. I haven't been able to top it out, but I have a feeling that once I get to that point and I top it out, that something cool will happen. Because there's something going on there. And I'm sure, knowing the nature of the hackers that put this thing together, there are Easter eggs abound here. Not just, hacking on a piece of hardware, but I'm willing to bet that you can do some funky stuff if you know what you're doing. If you run across any of these, write in or post them on our message forums. I'd love to see that. Anyway, once again, there's not much else to say. I mean, it's perfect. If it wasn't perfect, I could sit here and bitch longer, but I can't. All I can do is continue to tell you how great it is. Again, the must-have games on here, for example, if you skipped ahead and are just tuning in, Gateway to Abshai, Impossible Mission, Jumpman, Pit Stop 2, Speedball, Summer Games, Sword of Fargo was a great game, Uridium, Winter Games, and then, of course, there's tons more along with those, but those are the real gotta-haver titles. And I'll tell you what, even if it just came with those 10 or so games, it's still worth $30. No two ways about it. A perfect version of Gateway to Abshai on my 36-inch Wega is worth, what is that, $1? Or I guess in this case it'd be $3 if there was only 10 of them. But you're talking about $1 a game, worth it. Absolutely frickin' worth it. Jumpman Jr., perfect, $1, worth it. This is the way things should work. Not 5 games for $30, not 5 games for $20, 30 games. Okay, let's get 25 games for $30. That's still a good deal. Where do you get these guys? The only place you can get them is QVC.com. Type in Commodore in the search box, and you'll find it right away. It sells in a single pack for $30, a 2-pack for, I want to say like 52 or something like that. I mean, they give you a real generous discount if you buy more than one. Last I heard, they still had them in stock, even though they moved a greater portion of them over the holidays already. They were still in stock when I checked just before this review. So if you want one, you better get in and get one. I do not know where the distribution is going to happen after this, but keep your eyes open because this thing's here to stay. This is good stuff, and you want in on this. Again, that's from Mammoth Toys, worst website ever, best controller ever. So they equal themselves out. Go to QVC.com to pick that up. And again, this is the Commodore DTV, direct-to-TV, 30-in-1 game system. Just buy it. It's awesome. Just buy it. We'd like to thank Michael Welch for attending our special phone interview here on Retro Gaming Radio. We'd like to thank all the folks out there listening to the show, you studio pass holders, for which this show is an exclusive piece of content, at least until the DVD comes out in February. Thanks to SpeedHost.com, our eternal host and our Christmas giver, our savior for the Christmas, hooking us up with our bandwidth that we need to deliver the show to you every month. Special thanks to Retro Gamer Magazine, always delivering good content, hooking us up with a little banner exchange, getting the good word of Retro Gaming Radio out to our friends over in the UK. We have a lot of friends over in the UK. I'd say most of our DVD sales go to the UK. So thanks a lot, guys, for that. And thanks to all of you, our listeners. We are wrapping up our 6th Christmas here on Retro Gaming Radio. And it's truly amazing. I never really thought we'd ever be doing it for this long. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. At least unless the market dries up totally. And apparently Jax is going to keep that from happening. So maybe we should be thanking them. Not. Anyway, this is Shane R. Monroe, Brian Kidhype, Santa Smith behind the mixing board saying, until next time, which isn't very far from now, which isn't very long from now, keep it retro.